Yo, this is Steve Bloom, voice of Spike Spiegel, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Traveling the Vortex.
Russell cringed in fear and dread as Julie pulled him near and said,
Let's do it. Let's do it. I've had a really good idea. We'll revamp, make more camp a sci-fi show from yesteryear. I've had banter with Tranter. Your written word will be held in the Ming Mong mantra. Let's do it tonight.
But he said,
I can't do it. I can't do it. You're asking far too much of me. I'm harassed, embarrassed. I've watched the show since I was 3. Don't choose me, don't use me. My mother sent a note to say you must excuse me. I can't do it. I can't do it tonight.
So she said,
Let's do it. Let's do it. Make a brand new Doctor Who. We've got Chris in. All's missing is his sidekick and an all-Welsh crew. It's not silly to ask Billy. We'll film in every party from here to Caerphilly. Let's do it. Let's do it tonight.
Ooh, then he said,
I can't do it. I can't do it. The pressure of the BBC. I must email some young male to alleviate the stress on me. I can't block out, please lock out images of Johnny B getting his cock out. I can't do it. I can't do it tonight.
she replied,
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 59, where we take a look at the fantastic RTD era. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Glenn. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
How are you guys doing this week?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Just an average week, right?
Yeah.
Nothing really eventful going on.
Nah,
Well,
not so much.
How was your week?
Should I start? Well, I didn't have a very eventful weekend myself. I took the kids to the Muppets again on Saturday night, and they had a great time, and we loved it just as much as we did the first time. And I've decided that it is my favorite Muppet movie. It even surpasses the Muppet movie. So I know.
Now that is
Crazy stuff.
That's kind of beyond high praise.
Beyond high praise. Now,
the
I
Muppet
think
movie is. I mean, it's up there.
the
in your
Muppet
collection.
movie has the best songs still, hands down. But story-wise and capturing the spirit of the show itself, it's definitely a better movie. Now, it's just barely above, but it's.
Now, you're not just saying this because you're on this emotional high from.
Well, it could
Muppets.
be because I just came off of the Muppet movie or Muppets last night. So, but no, and the kids enjoyed it. Mason sat all the way through it again with no problems. Was glued to it the whole time. So we're now excited for it to come out on DVD next month or Blu-ray next month because we'll buy it day and date. So we're excited about that. The other thing that I did this weekend was I finished my taxes. So got those done and filed, and we're actually getting money back this year. So we're excited
Because I'm the tax man.
Yeah. So we'll actually get to do some big things with our return this year. So,
What are you doing?
well, I haven't decided yet. I almost bought tickets to Gallifrey, but I didn't think the wife would appreciate that too much.
Mel and I would have gladly found
the
a spot on the floor for
Well, I'd
you.
have slept on the floor.
We'd have
So,
gladly found a spot on the floor for you.
I'd have paid for some of your room too. So
We'd have gladly
to do
found a
that.
spot on the floor.
But no, alas, that won't happen this year. But hopefully next year I can get the tax returns done in time, and maybe it'll happen next year. That was it. That was
You're putting in
kind
a
of
pool, aren't you?
Yeah, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Not quite that much money, but we did get a good chunk back. So we've got some car repairs we have to take care of now. But
It sounds like my tax
we-
return. Hey,
we've
I'm
also
getting money back. Hey, there it went.
yeah, we're also got some other car repairs though that now we can put that have been minor things that haven't affected anything yet, but might down the road, and so we can put those on the front burner now and pull them off the back burner. So we were excited about that. Sean, you had kind of an eventful weekend this weekend.
I did. Not intentionally. Certainly didn't need it. A friend of ours who's a very, very big anime fan is planning an anime party, and she was asking about different conventions and Planet Con, which we know is coming up next month and whatnot.
Planet Comic Con.
Planet Comic Con, pardon me. And I said, I think there's an anime con in Kansas City. And she goes, really? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that they've done that, but I don't know, details or anything. So she calls me and says, oh, well, it's NokaCon, or NakaCon, Naka-Con, K-O-N. And it's this weekend. I said, oh, well, good luck with that. I found out
1 week before Galley.
yeah, yeah. I found out Wednesday that this was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And she goes, well, I thought you might be interested because Steve Bloom and Wendy Lee are going to be there. And for those that don't know, they're both voice actors, and they played Spike Spiegel and Faye Valentine in one of my all-time favorite television series, Cowboy Bebop, animated or otherwise.
I'm not an anime fan, and I love Bebop.
Yeah.
It's that good.
It's
an anime version of more futuristic Firefly.
It really is. It's just like Firefly. If you like Firefly, you'll like Cowboy Bebop. Quite honestly.
I like Firefly, but I've never liked Cowboy Bebop. But
Did you finish the entire series?
Cowboy Bebop? No, but I watched enough episodes to realize
then
that it
you
wasn't my cup
didn't
of
get
tea.
it.
Yeah, you have to see the entire thing.
You have to see.
Well, I don't want to be miserable through an entire series that I don't enjoy until the end to get a payoff.
It is 26 episodes, and it's every single one of them is a
They're
tight
all
little
half-hour.
contained story. Yeah, they're half hour long, and it's fantastic.
And I've seen probably 10 of those episodes, so I'm halfway there, and I didn't like it.
Here's the joy of it. I've watched Bebop literally.
I tried it based
5
on your
times.
recommendation, and actually so that I could appease you because I wanted to like it so much.
There are many things that I demand that you appease me on. And,
appease me,
and they fall short of your strange sensibilities.
Well, you and I have a lot of the same tastes and stuff, but that right there is just not what
It's
but
weird.
anyway,
it
I don't want
is
to
really
bring
weird
it
because
down.
you and I have so much similar tastes in things, but every now and then it's just
we just completely splinter.
completely diverged on things. It is so weird.
Which is good because then it gives us more to talk about. So.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah. Anyway, highly recommended. And so she said this, and I was kind of like, oh. Now, I'm still in the back of my head going, galley. I mean, that's the forefront of everything I've been geared for the last. I mean, you can ask the teachers at school. They've been. You're not. I've mentally checked out. I'm in LA already. So it's been okay. Got to do galley, and that's right. But wow, Steve Bloom and Wendy Lee.
Well, and not to mention the fact that you tried to get Steve Bloom's autograph twice.
I have been thwarted on Steve Bloom's autograph twice before. We had a friend who went to a convention and came back. I had no idea what was going on. He came back and he said, hey, guess what I did this week? I said, what? He says, I went to this anime convention. I was like, oh, cool. He says, guess who was there? I said, who? He says, Steve Bloom. And I went, oh, Spike? Did you get me an autograph? And he goes, no. Why?
That's a friend that does not know Sean well enough to know that you just get the autograph.
I'd have paid you back for that. He goes, no, I just didn't. So I've harbored a grudge against Julian pretty much since then. I'm surprised I'm still friends with him. So then Keith and Sarah, when they went down to Contagion in Omaha, or up to yeah. Well, I'm going to take my droid down to maintenance. You know, it could be either way. When they went up to,
I really believe that was down. Down 30 floors in the express elevator.
It's a good thing too because if
he was wrong.
Now 3PO's got the benefit of the doubt that he's seen the specs, so he knew where it was. But it was a 50-50 chance otherwise. He could have said, I'm taking my counterpart up to maintenance, and the stormtrooper would have been okay with it. But the fact that he said down, the stormtrooper could have cued into that and gone, no, you're not. I'm just saying.
It's not down.
Many coincidences in Star Wars. Anyway, that's a tangent. So Keith and Sarah go up to Omaha, and Steve Bloom's going to be there. I'm like, hey, bring me back an autograph. They're like, sure. Steve Bloom had to cancel. Don't know the details. I assume it was something work-related. He couldn't be there. So I was like, oh, man, missed him again. So now here he is in my own backyard. He's in Kansas City. It's like, and I mentioned it to Mel and just kind of on the, would you maybe be interested? And her response was, oh, hell yeah. Are you kidding me? Spike and Faye together? We got to go. It's like, oh, okay. So we're going to go Sunday. Well, then we're looking at the schedule, and the schedule didn't permit it because Wendy wasn't going to be there Sunday. And we was like, well, we got to get both of them. So now we had to rearrange some things so that we could try and go Saturday when they're both going to be there. Comedy of errors ensues. We go down, and we forget to bring things. I can't find the camera battery. Just one after another, to the point where we're on the road, and I'm thinking of things that we forgot. And I'm getting... I'm a Pisces, which means you can push me and push me and push me and push me, and I'm okay. But eventually I get to that point where it's like, I ain't going to take no more, And I'm in the car, and I'm at that point. And it's not anybody's fault. It was just dumb stuff that happened one after another. So we get down there.
Last minute planning.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you throw things together last minute. So we get down there, and, it's not $20. That's the Sunday price. It's $30. Okay, $30 a piece to get into this thing. So we get there, and we get registered, and we get our badges, and we get through the door, and it's packed. I mean, this place is crowded. I'll post some photos online. And it was like, where do we head? Okay, we're going to head over here. And we go and we stick our heads in the room. This is where Steve Bloom's going to be signing. It was first on the schedule, and there's nobody in this room. It's a big empty auditorium. And I look at the schedule that they gave me, and I look at the schedule on my phone, which came directly from the internet, from their from their schedule planning. And the one online says 11 o'clock, and the one in my hand says 10 o'clock, and it's after 11. Aww. We apparently have missed Steve Bloom's autograph session. It was that level of. There were people, and if you've ever been to an anime con, there's some strange people there. I mean, more so than at a traditional comic book convention or even science fiction. These are the fans that take it one step further. We were oddballs because we were not cosplaying as a fuzzy animal. Or, I mean, it was just...
We're somebody from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a little otherworldly. So they looked at us like, what's wrong with you guys? And why is he on his knees screaming and pounding on the door of that ballroom? I mean, so what do? Well, we went and hit the dealer's room for a little bit, and then we went to the panel, and we had some fun at the panel that was all about Bebop, and then we went to the Steve Bloom panel that was all about Steve Bloom stuff, which he's been a voice actor forever. And he happens to hand out his Twitter handle, which for those of you that are interested in following Steve Bloom on Twitter, it's @BloomSpew, BLUMSPEW. Highly recommend it. So, of course, I immediately plugged him into my phone. And I sent him a tweet as soon as the panel was over. I was like, hey, Steve, this is my third attempt to try and get an autograph from you, and the third time I've missed it. Is there any possibility that you're going to add an autograph session? Which, for the organizers, who does a 1-hour autograph session? Ever. That's just not even realistic, especially with the number of people you had. So he replies. Steve Bloom replied to me on Twitter. He goes, well, there's one tomorrow at noon. And I had to send back, well, we're only in town for the day. And he'd mentioned that, he partakes of spirits every now and then. I was like, dude, I'll buy you a bottle of scotch for an autograph. I totally, what can I do to make this happen? I didn't hear anything back from him, so I just kind of assumed that was the end of it. So then after the Bloom panel, there's absolutely nothing going on the rest of the day until 9 o'clock at night when it's Wendy Lee's signing. So we were really dragging at this point because we didn't know what else we were going to do. But
Mel's not feeling well.
And she's not feeling good. That was one of the other, on top of everything else that went wrong. Mel's not feeling terribly well this weekend. So we were adamant we're not missing Wendy Lee. So we're in line at 8. There's one girl in front of us and then us. So we're spots 2 and 3 for these autographs. She's going to sign at 9. 8:35, a woman from the convention comes up and announces to the line that has formed behind us that, well, there's been a change in the schedule. And at least they told us, because I would have ripped this building from its foundation. There's been a change in the schedule. Instead of doing the autograph session first and then having Wendy Lee run off to do this Bleach program panel, we're going to do the Bleach panel first. And so she won't be signing until 10. And we're like, oh, that's another hour. We've got to sit here and wait. Oh, PM. We've been here since, we were up early and been at this thing since, just after 11. By the way, you have to be present at the Bleach panel in order to get an autograph. And it's not going to be here. You have to go around to the other door. And whatever row you sit in is where your autograph is going to be, in line for. So we get up and haul around to the other end of the ballroom, only to find out that, of course, all the Bleach panel people are there, and they're early. And we went from being number 2 and number 3 for autographs to like number 150, 151. It was just... okay. So we're sitting there, and we sit through Bleach. I've never watched Bleach. I'm sure it's a fine show. I didn't care. I love Wendy Lee. She's a wonderful actress. She's a great director, voice actress, whatever. I don't care about this program. Hurry up and get through the panel. Give me my autograph so I can get out of here and go home. In the middle of all this, I check my phone, and I've gotten another tweet from Steve Bloom. And he says, dude, are you still here? And my ears perked up. Yeah, I'm down in Wendy Lee's thing. And he says, do you have the stuff that you want me to autograph? And I'm like, yeah, I've got it right here. And he says, all right, I'll come down. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, thank you. And I'm all excited. So I go up, and they've locked the room off because all the people that thought they were going to be doing this Bleach presentation at 10 are still standing outside because they apparently didn't let everybody know, and they won't let anybody into the room because there's a finite number of autographs that have been promised to these people, which were one of them. So they're either waiting to get into the Bleach panel, which isn't going to happen, or they're waiting to get into the autograph session at 10, thinking that we'll do this after the panel. But they're going to have everybody in the room serviced first, so they're not doing this. So there are a bunch of angry people outside, and there's a security at the door. And I asked the woman, I was like, look, I pointed my phone out to her. I was like, I got a tweet from Steve Bloom that says I can come over and get something autographed. Can I get back into this room afterwards? And she said, no, absolutely not. We're not letting anybody in. So then I said, well, can I go get the stuff signed and then have it passed back to my girlfriend if she stays in the room? Because we're going to have them sign the same stuff since they were in the same show. And she says, well, yeah, that'd be all right. So I haul over to the hotel, and I deal with a very rude concierge, and I see Steve Bloom. And for the record, Steve Bloom is the nicest guy ever. He was just an absolute joy, and he was apologetic, which I didn't expect. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry that you had to go through this. I'm like, dude, I'm just appreciative that you thank you so much for coming down and dealing with a crazy fan and all this stuff. And he signed with, and then he did a bumper for us. And,
which you heard at the beginning of the show.
Which you heard at the beginning of the show. And, where's Mel at? Because I understand that she was one. I was like, well, she's waiting for Wendy Lee, so I have to get this stuff back to her. And he goes, oh, man. He says, well, do you need me to walk you back over to the convention hall so that you can get back in? And I almost said yes, just so that he could go to that rude security lady and go, do you know who I am? Let this guy back in the room. But I was like, no, I, at this point, it was just after such a dour start to the day and everything that went on to know that this was still, this was now a highlight because I've met the guy. And he says, well, thank God for Twitter, right? And I said, if I wasn't a fan before, I totally am now. I mean, because this saved the convention for me. So then I hauled over to the panel and passed the stuff over to Mel, and she got Wendy Lee to sign it, and we went home very, very happy. So it went from a in the toilet kind of start to the things to a really big emotional high for us at the end of the day.
Terrific. That's awesome.
And now I had to switch gears and get my brain back set for Galley because I don't want the same thing to happen. I mean, the emotional high I'd be okay with, but the downer stuff I don't want to mess with. So,
but a lot of people there and some cosplayers.
A lot of people there, a lot of cosplayers, a lot of Doctor Who. I saw a couple of Sherlocks. I'll get photos posted online as soon as I get them off my camera and set up. And we kind of treated a little bit as a dry run for what we're going to be able to do for Galley, for me sending things to you guys so that you can get them posted immediately. And I think we've got most of the kinks worked out on that now.
I think so, yeah.
Hopefully we'll have a full weekend for everybody next weekend on the website so that you can check in and see what's going on.
Yep.
And all of my misadventures in L.A.
Hopefully it goes smoother in
It'll
LA.
be just like the movie Adventures in Babysitting, no kids. That's kind of what I'm banking on.
But you also picked up a few DVDs.
I did. I picked
rounded out the schedule.
Rounded out the schedule. I picked up the Dalek War box set with Pertwee, which I'm really looking forward to since we talked about the Draconians and how everybody was kind of excited about that. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the Beneath the Surface box, which we've already reviewed those stories, but I didn't own them, so it was nice to
now
get those
you
on
do,
there.
and you can
Sea
watch
Devils
Sea
are
Devils
going to be on the
Sea Devils we are putting back on the schedule for that, and picked up some very cool swag. Some fun Doctor Who art in the vendor's room, which apparently Doctor Who is huge in Japan. Is the only thing I can come up with because this was it's all very stylistic anime style drawings of the Doctor, and it's all David Tennant and Matt
almost
Smith.
verges on manga. Some of the
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
But it's very cool looking. So there was that, and we had a really good time. So it turned into a oh my god. Into a good thing. So now I can say that as a convention, if you're local and in the area, NakaCon was a lot of fun. I don't know that I'd go back unless there was a really big caliber media guest that really sparked my attention. If it was just so and so's going to be there, I'd be kind of like, for those prices and dealing with all that other random stuff that was associated with this particular con. Maybe not. Yeah. And this was also the first time, realistically, that I've done any panels. I realized that I'm not apparently a big panel person. All the Star Trek conventions that I've been to, I kind of go, I get my autograph, I talk to the guest, and then, I'm gone. And it's funny, whenever I've done a really long one over the weekend, I almost feel like I need to insert a little bit of learning into my geekness. So I was telling the story to Mel. I went to a Star Trek convention in Kansas City once and did everything I wanted to do on Saturday. And the only thing that was left was there was another session with the Star on Sunday evening. But I didn't care about any of the programming. So I wound up going over to Independence and drove 20 minutes out of my way and went to the Harry S. Truman Museum and spent the day at the Presidential Library and then came back to the Geek Fest. So, This was kind of a first for me to actually sit in on some of these panels and some of the different programming that they have. And it was kind of fun. I mean, again, it's something that interested me this time versus some of the other ones.
Right.
So Galley is, I'm still kind of up in the air. I've gone over the list.
Oh,
That one would be kind of cool.
I completely love panels. Sometimes it eats into your schedule when you're trying to get things done, like autographs and things like that, and they often take priority. But.
You are going to go to the reunion panel, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to try it. Galley is kind of a different animal because I feel like as much as I'm going for myself, I'm going for the podcast as well.
Sean will be at the podcasters panel.
Will I?
The only one that, not on it, but in it.
Oh, I'll be in it.
But that's the only one that I've got you slated to definitely go to.
Did you have to talk to somebody to get me in there?
No. It's just you need to go in and sit down. You're not on the panel, but I won't. You need to go in there and sit in because we need some pointers and.
Oh yeah,
this will be something that
like we know what we're doing.
Right,
come on, so.
And you'll be able to listen in, and then a lot of those panel guys will run on their shows that panel as well. So that'll be shared with a lot of people as well. So
cool. I'll make sure that you
don't skimp on me, though. No. Well, if they're going to run it on their podcast, I'll just listen to it when they get back. No, Sean. No,
I won't do that. I will go to that. No, that was the Wendy Lee put on a thing on script editing and writing for anime. Cause she does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. She does a lot of voice casting. She does a lot of directing for animated series, and that was a panel that I would have liked to have gone to. But it was scheduled at the same time as the Steve Bloom one. It's like
sometimes that just happens, and you have to when you get these conventions.
It felt like Celebration 3.
When you get that's just it. When you get these convention schedules, you have to sit down and highlight the things you want to do, and the things that you could do. And there's a lot of times that you won't get to the things you want to do, so you have to fall back on a lot of things you could do, or you're going to end up sitting in a hallway, waiting for your next big thing. And so
that's what I worry about ever going to. San Diego Comic Con.
So
most of your time
that's what you do is you schedule your day and you go when you go to a con you schedule your day, but you realize that schedule is always in flux because you'll never be able to do everything you want to do at a convention. It just doesn't happen. So,
but overall the people were very nice and friendly, and because you always kind of worry about that going to cons that sometimes you're going to get. I mean, let's face it, geeks are by nature a species that they don't get a lot of social interaction. Unless it comes online, and then all of a sudden you're bringing them all together in one room at the same time, it can get a little hairy. It
could be a train wreck.
So, but for the most part, everybody was a lot of fun. I think for the most part, it was a convention that I'd have to think very, very carefully on, and I certainly wouldn't do it. And I told Mel, I was like, if this is going to become a regular thing for us, where apparently the front half of the year is the convention-going season, because you've got NakaCon in February, and then immediately followed up with Galley, and then
Planet Comic Con next
later.
month.
So I mean,
Planet
it's
Comic
Planet Comic Con.
Emphasis on comics in this particular one.
Planet Comic Con.
Yes.
Not Comic Con, but
Planet Comic Con.
At least in our area,
That's just kind of the thing. Well, because it's put on by Planet Comics, so I mean it is a.
Well, I want to make sure I want credit where credit's due.
Absolutely.
But like I said, so it turned into a very good thing. And Steve Bloom, if for whatever reason you do happen to be listening once again, dude, you are amazingly cool, and thank you, because you really saved my weekend.
This is Wendy Lee from Cowboy Bebop, Say Valentine. Haruhi Suzumiya, Konata from Lucky Star, and Urudu from Bleach, all saying you're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Keith, you didn't do anything special this weekend, did you?
Not too much. Yeah. Sarah and I celebrated Valentine's Day this weekend.
Get it out of the way since you both work on schedules, or different schedules.
Different schedules, and I'd get home at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night on Valentine's Day. So we decided to do it this weekend because our anniversary is in like 2 weeks. So instead of having back-to-back, we're splitting it up a little bit more.
And who's responsible for your anniversary again?
That would be you.
Thanks.
She got me burgundy suspenders for my costume.
Trainers.
Ooh.
Trainers?
Braces.
Not trainers. Trainers are sneakers.
Sneakers.
Braces, yes.
Braces. So now I can properly wear, and I need to get a burgundy striped shirt so I can properly do the Fez justice.
Yes.
In continuity costume. And Sherlock on Blu-ray.
Ooh.
Which is awesome in itself.
Yes. So a very British Valentine's Day.
Did you get anything for her for Valentine's Day?
I'll get there. Hold on. She gave that to me early in the afternoon, and then we went to dinner. I was originally.
Did you look up the price of her gifts online so that you could reciprocate appropriately?
No.
Okay, just ask.
I don't think you had to worry.
We went to dinner. I was originally going to cook, but we didn't get moving early enough. We didn't get out of the house until like 5 o'clock.
Which is a really good thing, because I called you from Kansas City. I was like, dude, what's on the Vortex schedule so I know what Doctor Who to buy? And he's like, okay. I'm like, are you still in bed? Yeah.
Well, so perhaps you're the reason they even got up on Saturday.
Did I wake you? No. You sure? Well, I'm still in bed, but I was awake.
That's what you know.
This
what?
is like 3 o'clock in the
ever
afternoon.
answers in the phone in bed and tells the truth.
No.
Every time you call somebody and you
I honestly
just know
was
from their
awake.
voice that you woke them up, every time
The
they
difference
say,
is-
"No, you didn't wake me up."
If you'd
"No,
like
I
to call
was
and
awake."
wake up Keith, his phone number is.
Hey, no. I just hadn't had my coffee yet, so that's why I sounded so groggy. I was awake.
It's a theme with you guys. Weekends are not
Yeah.
you're
Well,
vampires.
and
so.
So you went to dinner.
Sarah had to open. She had to go in early, so she came back to the apartment and wanted to take a nap too. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm not
well,
gonna
that's
get
understandable.
up. I'm going to stay in bed with you."
I don't work on Saturdays. I'm staying in bed.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we went to dinner. Ended up going to Lawrence, to the Mad Greek, which she had never been to. Which it's our first Valentine's Day. I wanted it to be special, and I was pulling my hair out over dinner because I've made her all of my staple meals at this point.
Uh-oh.
And yeah,
You didn't save anything back for...
I didn't save anything. There's like one thing, but it's like fried rice. That's not Valentine's Day.
That's not a good one.
So we went to Mad Greek. It was fantastic. She really enjoyed it.
She liked Greek.
She never had Greek before.
Oh, there you go.
So
Did she enjoy it?
Did you have a
She
gyro?
liked it.
she
We're just stretching this out, aren't we?
She had shrimp kebabs, along with Greek style
Kebabs.
green beans, and then the rice pilaf and whatnot.
Did you take a picture of it?
No, I didn't. I should have.
Sorry, that's the thing. Have you noticed that? People put pictures of what they're eating
Oh, yeah,
on Facebook.
absolutely is.
What the heck is that?
That's not like I did that on Saturday when I went to Fazoli's.
Well, yeah, but I mean that was more. That was an in joke. That was
was a
a
spite.
I'm rubbing it
That was
in.
a
Yeah, that
spite.
was a
It was
spite.
totally a
There are
spite.
people that will go eat a meal, and before they eat the meal, they will take a picture of it and put it on Facebook.
I tried to take a picture, but it kept
I don't
coming out
get it.
blurry. It must have been dark.
Get it? I mean, I put one on my Facebook one time when I ate at a Mexican restaurant, but that was on vacation. That was part of my vacation. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
Before we went to Lawrence, we also had gone.
But no
to-
pictures of the Mad Greek.
No pictures. We also had gone to Family Video, a local store, and rented a couple movies.
That's in Topeka. I hope you didn't rent in Lawrence because
No.
that's going to make
Yeah.
it pretty difficult to take
Yeah,
them back.
I've done that from time to time.
Oh Lord!
When I used to rent, I would run movies back to a video store that I really liked in Lawrence, and it was a pain. I finally stopped doing it. But
But we rented a couple movies, and
What'd you rent?
we rented The Help,
I'm the one dragging this.
Doctor Who, Christmas Carol. Let me preface this.
out. Which he at one time
I owned,
on Blu-ray,
and then I went and sold, and then
Because he bought the
discovered what
box set.
Then discovered what the Proms was.
and
Really wanted to see, Sarah and I both really wanted to see the 2010 Proms.
which are not on the box set.
Which is not on the box set.
And I feel bad because you and I cajoled and pushed and twisted his arm.
You're dragging me into this.
Yes,
because
you too.
we both
No.
did. We both got on him about
made fun of me for buying Christmas
You
Carol.
don't.
No. I didn't make fun of you for buying Christmas Carol. Because I justified it because it came out weeks after, and I knew the box set wasn't going to be out for almost another year.
You still gave me a hard time about it.
No,
we definitely gave you a hard
you're
time about
No, you're
keeping
misunderstanding. Yes, I give you a hard time about keeping it because I just thought it was strange
Which I
that
didn't.
somebody would buy something that they're going to rebuy in 8 months, but whatever.
Which I ended up not keeping.
Right, so you did
And
take
so
it
he
back.
discovered the Proms.
He ended up not keeping it, and then discovered the Proms are not on the
But you
box
only
set.
rented it for $1.
Yeah, so yeah, it was $1. That wasn't bad. So I'm totally fine with that. And we rented 50-50. We didn't get to watch 50-50.
Because you rented Doctor Who from.
Yeah, we ended up watching
Christmas
even though we had 50-50 for one night and Christmas Carol for 5 nights. We watched The Help and Sarah was like,
of course,
that
Doctor Who outranks. You know,
we watched The Help and Sarah was like, I need to watch something happy. Let's watch The Proms.
It's the best film of the year material.
I think if it weren't going up against The War Horse, knowing the history of the Oscars, I think it had a good shot.
Oh, Warhorse won't win the Oscar.
No, I don't
You
think
don't
so.
think so?
Spielberg's not nominated for director. So
Do we really want to go there?
Okay.
Well, we're going to do an Oscar show before the Oscars.
Okay,
You-
well,
you-
let's
Sean will
wait.
attest. I will have most of them right.
I just assume that it's a war movie that pulls at your heartstrings. Likely it'll win.
No, not even close. Sorry.
If it was a 2-horse race between Warhorse and The Help, I would agree with you.
The Help's not going to win either, I don't
No,
I don't think so either. But it was a fantastic story, and it's hard to believe that was only 60 years ago. It's set in the 1960s, and that just wrapping my mind around that took most of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 years ago.
That sounds so...
It does. It gets
Doesn't it?
further away every time. Because
It was in the
I grew up in
60s.
an
That was
era when the
60 years
60s
ago.
were only 20 years ago.
I got... Well, you and I both were almost... I mean, we're kind of only a few
Oh,
years
yeah.
out
We were
from
only a
that,
few out
so
from the 60s from being born. So
We're almost love children.
But before we watched the movies, I proposed.
you propose that you watch another movie?
I proposed marriage to Sarah.
What?
I hid the ring in the DVD case and had her go get it. And she went and got it and didn't even look at the case. She just grabbed it and, okay, here you go. And I was like, there's something rattling in there. And she looked down and saw it, and then I got down on one knee.
In typical
asked-
woman fashion, she grabbed the case and handed it to you to put in. Huh?
Almost.
I'm kidding, Sarah. I'm kidding.
I was further across the living room, so she had to walk a little further. And she rounded the corner a lot quicker than I'd hoped. And I was planning on getting down on one knee before she rounded the corner, but she rounded the corner. I thought she would pick it up, look at it, see it in there, round the corner, and I'd be there. But didn't quite happen that way. But I still got down on one knee and asked for her hand in marriage, and she said yes. Actually, she said, of course.
Yay. So I'd like to propose a toast. That's why I stole your beer.
Oh, okay.
To Keith and Sarah, congratulations on the engagement, and to many happy years to come.
Thank you very much.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Every time somebody says Mazel tov, I feel the need to smash my glass.
You
It's
go ahead
full,
and do that
don't
with
do
that
that.
can of beer up against your forehead.
You have an empty one over there, so...
I'll crush the can. That's
Crush it against your head, Glenn. Go.
No.
So today
Our listeners want to hear it, Glenn.
Today we spent the rounds going to... First off, we went...
I've got a big ring on my head, don't I?
Yay!
It was not near as impressive as him proposing. That does not deserve a clap.
I'm clapping for the smiley because you don't have a whole
just
ring.
gonna
You just have a
press it.
smiley face on your head.
And if I slur the rest of this, it's because I've done some damage. Ouch.
You don't use your frontal lobes for much.
No.
So that was my weekend. We
Yes,
spent
for
the day
feet.
making rounds and showing people and whatnot. Showed her mom, and actually, she had signed us up to take a cat to Junction City to meet her cousin halfway there. So at least we got to show the cousin the ring.
This was
She had signed you up to take a cat
got up late.
halfway to Junction
or that was
City.
today.
That was today.
That was today because you proposed Saturday.
I proposed Saturday.
Okay, I got you.
It was today. We got up, took a cat, showed her mom the ring. Her mom cried, which I thought was very sweet. Out of happiness.
Oh no! I got Keith as a son-in-law.
My mom asked that after she asked the reaction. It was happy, right? And she's like, "Oh yes." Took the cat to Junction City.
There's not many occasions that you get to tell people that you.
We took a cat to Junction
I
City.
proposed to my girlfriend on Saturday, and on Sunday I followed it up by taking a cat halfway to Junction City.
No, we took it to Junction City. He lives in McPherson.
Oh, that's halfway.
So he met us
Oh,
halfway,
my gosh.
which we don't get to see him very often. And
Well, that's nice. And then you got to
I like
show,
Adam and
show off the
Kelsey,
ring.
and we get along great. They've come down for Thanksgiving, and we sat around playing cards.
Was
and
this
it's a
his
lot of fun.
cat?
It's now his cat.
I'm trying to. Did it wander away from home and she was returning it? How did?
Sarah's mom's boss.
Really, do we need to know this much about the cat?
I'm concerned about the well-being of the feline.
Needed.
All right,
to
let me
get rid
make a
of her
note.
cat.
When you have to edit this show down, cut out the cat.
Her mom's boss needed to get rid of
This is more interesting than my Nakakon story. I mean, come on.
Needed to get rid of the cat, so
We spent more time on the cat than we have the engagement.
we took the cat to Adam and Kelsey, who just got a house and have a lot of mice.
They have a lot of cat room.
And that too.
They bought a house with mice.
They didn't know it had mice. It's an old farmhouse. They live in McPherson, Kansas.
Okay.
The original owners hadn't moved. Sorry, original occupants. I suppose that's it.
And then when we got back, we went over to my mom's, and
Sorry.
and then we went to dinner because we kind of had a Sarah's brother's going to Georgia for training in the military, so he's leaving next week. So we had kind of a going away dinner, and her dad's birthday is in the next couple of weeks, so we kind of had a birthday dinner, and then told her brother and his wife, and then we told the group, the Sunday Shows group. I called my dad and told
All these
him.
people knew before me.
I was waiting until you got here.
Even Clontarf knew before me.
Yes.
I feel really bad that I spoiled that for you now.
Yeah. So I walk in the door tonight, and Sean is showing Keith the anime prints that he's bought and the autographs that he's gotten and whatnot. And the last one he pulls out is this really, really cool Matt Smith, Dave Tennant, side by side, dressed as their doctors, 10 and 11. And it looks awesome and it's incredible. And he hands it to them saying, and I got this for you as an engagement present. And, of course, the way my brain works is I'm looking at this thing going, hey, that's really cool. That's neat. That was real thoughtful that he got that. That's both of their doctors that together on one page. That's an awesome gift. And then I went, what? Did I hear engagement in there? And so then, of course, Sarah showed me the ring, and
Yes.
it's a really, really nice
It's a very nice
ring.
ring, so
job.
you did a good
Thank
job
you.
on it.
Thank you very much. I had originally planned on springing it on you on the podcast.
Yeah, I'd been really mad. Of course, we couldn't have drugged this out any more
that's
than
true.
we did if we had. Anyway, but congratulations
Thank
to
you
you
very
both, because that's incredibly awesome. So
We are both.
everything from this point on in the podcast is just going to pale in comparison to that news.
Who needs to talk about Russell T. Davies now?
That's right.
Well, thanks for joining us this week.
We're pushing Wrestle to next week.
I think we should live record the wedding.
I think I'm going to be a little preoccupied.
Well, no, not that you have to do commentary.
We'll run up
on
every
it.
once in a while and put a mic in his face. So what do you think?
It's not that he has to be. We'll just record it and we'll put it out as a side trip
I think that
or a short
sounds good to
stop or
me.
whatever
Yeah.
whatever we
Side
name
trip.
those.
Side trip. Short stop. I did throw
before-
that out
I
as an
think once
idea.
upon a
That's
time.
right.
Before anybody emails in,
It's a companion archive. Or, well, it's marriage. It could be an adversary archive.
Sean speaks from experience.
I'm a little jaded.
Before anybody emails in, no, we don't have anything set date-wise.
That was
or
gonna be my
plans,
next question.
Or we don't have anything quite yet.
We'll take it slow. I mean,
They are
enjoy the
registered at the
engagement.
Traveling the Vortex Amazon store.
And you can send those gifts.
Oh, that's great news. That is fantastic news. Speaking of news, like that segue?
That's a
right?
good segue.
Good segue. A couple of
it's
big
okay.
things this week. Let's talk about the SFX Awards first, because that was on our
Earlier in the
radar
week.
earlier in the week. Yeah,
Some of you might have seen this on our Facebook page.
because
but
Sean posted it on our Facebook page, and then as we were talking in the pre-show meeting tonight, he said, "Really, the SFX Awards
What
came
is
out?
that?
Is that what that
What
was?
is that?" And Sean, you posted it on Facebook.
I just copied and
shared it.
I shared.
Oh, okay.
Somebody else just put it up, and I was like, "Hey,
Hey, look, this is cool. It's Doctor Who related.
That's Doctor Who related."
Click.
Share.
Which-
you betcha.
Those that don't know, SFX is a sci-fi magazine.
In the UK.
We get it over here, too.
It's UK based.
Oh, I didn't know.
But
that,
yes, yes.
We get it over here. I've seen it in Barnes &
Well,
Noble.
do you have the site up?
Yes, but I'm on the news and under winners.
Oh, okay.
And several Doctor Who people won.
They won
First up,
awards.
they won
in
awards.
British
The
science
best
fiction.
Believe it or not.
Best TV show, Doctor Who.
Woo!
Beat out Game of Thrones, Misfits, and Fringe.
Yay!
Best actor, Matt Smith for Doctor Who. Beat out a guy from Game of Thrones, Michael Fassbender for X-Men. So it's not only just TV, it's movies too.
Yeah, which is
For
cool.
X-Men First
Which
Class.
is very cool.
And I can't... A guy
It's
from
okay.
Misfits.
People in this
Yeah.
that are listening to this
They'll
really only
know.
care that Matt Smith won.
Best actress, Alex Kingston.
Yay.
However, it is worth noting, she beat out Karen Gillian and Eve Miles.
Well, there you go. Those are Doctor related.
Yes.
Doctor Who related.
As far as the
As opposed to
SFX...
House related, I suppose. I don't know.
As far as the SFX Teen Choice Awards, screenwriting excellence, Neil Gaiman for Doctor Who, The Doctor's Wife.
Yay!
Living legend, Brian Blessed. Did I say that right?
I think we're saying it right. Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's blessed. I don't
I'm
think
still
it's
going to
blessed.
go with blessed.
It's spelled both ways, but
Brian Blessed.
it's spelled that way. But
Glenn,
I mean, blessed
Glenn,
is how you
want to
spell that
explain
as well.
the connection?
Yeah,
for those that
actually,
don't know?
anybody
Like
that doesn't
Sean and
know,
I.
Brian Blessed was in Mind Warp. Is that what I said it was? It's one of the time
Mind something.
Trial of the
I
Time
think it's
Lord
Mind Warp.
That has it involves Syl, the Sixth Doctor, Perry, and Brian Blessed. And I looked up his name, and now I don't have it in front of me. But he was King some weird name. And but yeah, he played in an episode of Doctor Who. That's the only connection that I know of that he was. Oh, he played King Wycronos, I think is how you say it. Rykonos. Or Ikonos.
For those who haven't seen that story, what else has he been in?
Yeah, Sean, what else has he been in?
Well, he played Robin Hood's dad in the Kevin Costner Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And, of course, I will forever know him as the Birdman from Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
Yes.
just a little known movie.
A little known
Yes.
movie.
Flash Gordon. Nobody. Really
He's one of those guys. He's only been in, I don't know, everything. I mean, what hasn't Brian Blessed
Well,
been
and he
in?
was in, as I brought up, you didn't realize until tonight that he was the voice of Boss Nass in The Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
So.
which I didn't know that. I
Which
didn't know he was in
elevated
Doctor Who.
Phantom
so-
Menace for
Yeah.
Sean just a bit.
Let me tell you, I'm so ready to go see Phantom Menace in 3D now, just because I know
Brian
Brian
Blessed
Blessed
is the voice, yeah.
is Boss Nass.
And, well, I guess another
He was
Doctor
also in the
Who
Mad
related.
Adder. He was the father in the first Mad Adder series. For anybody that are Mad Adder fans.
Another
Not Mad Adder. Black Adder.
Blackadder.
I knew where you were
There
going
I
with
go
that. but
again.
I knew what you meant.
There I go again, and everybody, there was a collective silence. Huh?
Adder. Okay, that.
Black
Rowan
Adder.
Atkinson.
Black
Rowan Atkinson.
Adder. Yes, another Doctor Who connection.
That brain, that can hit your brain hard.
Man,
doesn't it?
yeah, it pushed everything to the back. Frontal
Another
lobe was important.
another slightly Doctor Who connection. Hope for the Future went to Dirk Gently, which I guess they're making something out of that.
Apparently
Really?
so.
Dirk
yeah,
Gently's
that-
Velocity detective agency?
yeah. For anybody that doesn't know, that was written back in the day by
Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams, who of course wrote one of my favorite series, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Dirk Gently. That's fantastic.
And new this year, which I think this is so cool, the Elizabeth Sladen Award, which goes to the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yay.
Fittingly so. Now, the Elizabeth Sladen Award is a new award instigated this year in honor of Elizabeth Sladen.
Instigated? I guess
That's
maybe
what the
right.
script
Yeah,
says.
no, I'm not
the
questioning
script,
you.
that's what
I'm
the website
questioning
says.
them. Yeah,
In future years, this award will continue to recognize...
instated. Maybe would have been
Instated,
good. Yeah.
established. Either one of those would I think would have been better choices.
Regardless, in future years, the award will continue to recognize outstanding contributions to children's sci-fi and fantasy in any medium.
Yeah, isn't that
Yay.
wonderful?
That is so fantastic.
That is
That is, I mean, not only that it's just the Elizabeth Sladen, but the fact that they're going to acknowledge children's science fiction programming and literature. And so, I mean, that is key, because if we hook them young, they'll be fans.
No,
forever.
absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. And hook them good with good material. Hook them
Yeah.
young with good material
Yeah.
too. That's key.
That is outstanding.
I think I just saw when I saw that when I was looking through a list. I was like, "What is that?" And then I scrolled down and saw the star, and everyone that knew would know I told. Anyone that would appreciate it, I mentioned it too.
I'm glad I shared that on Facebook now.
Yeah, I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. What else is in the news?
Well, this week it was also announced that two of, my favorite genres, Sean's as well, although I think he has reservations, are colliding soon. Two universes are colliding. It was announced this week by Radio Times, and actually they got it from bleedingcool.com.
Which I think spoiled it, because the current theory that I've heard associated with this is that IDW is going to announce this at Galley.
Oh, is that right?
And
that's too bad.
So,
anyway, they announced this week, or it was announced this week, not necessarily by IDW, but it was announced this week that our favorite time team will be meeting the crew of the USS Enterprise.
And which crew?
It will be the Next Gen crew. Ooh. So the Doctor, Amy, and Rory will meet Captain Jean-Luc Picard and his crew. I'm not going to name off all the names. You know they are. Anyway,
don't really care.
In an upcoming crossover, in an upcoming crossover, and there's little known about what it'll entail, but this is the first time, not for the Star Trek crew, but this is the first time that Doctor Who has let another genre play in the sandbox, essentially, unless you count the failed Dimensions in Time that crossed over with EastEnders. But Sean just made a really, really bad face. Anyway, so that line will be coming soon. It's going to be its own. It's going to be its own story. It's not known how many issues it will be, but I imagine it'll do at least a 6-issue arc. I wouldn't think it'd be a one-shot comic.
Could be
but
4.
Maybe not.
I still think it'd be cool to do a 5-issue arc.
Why?
And
okay, why?
Each iteration of the TV series, the Doctor, each issue deals with that crew.
No.
Okay, so this whole thing is going to just be Next Gen, so don't let Keith throw you off here.
I think that would be awesome.
It would not be awesome.
I'm just totally excited that they're going to...
They're time travelers.
In the history of Star Trek, and all of the crossovers that Star Trek has done, they've never been handled well. Gene Roddenberry came out and said there will be no crossovers, and then immediately put DeForest Kelley as supposedly an Admiral McCoy in the first episode, and it was kind of like a nice little nod, and that was it. And then every single time that we've actually done a crossover, whether it's been a book or a comic series or something, take this from this is coming from the sci-fi geek on the panel, okay, from the Star Trek fan. Every single time they've done a crossover within a Star Trek universe, it has been bloated and unnecessary and handled badly. The crews do not play well together.
Well,
every single time.
I'm not saying the crews interact. I'm saying the Doctor interacts with each of
the
crews.
The problem that I have with that is they've done other things. They've done book series where they've come out and, okay, this is the new threat to the galaxy, and it's going to be introduced in this book, and then Picard will have to deal with it in this book, and then Sisko will deal with it in this book. And it's the same kind of setup. Anytime the Doctor would be the outside influence coming in and journeying around, and you'd have to have some sort of plot narrative thread that wound all these things together that was a reason for the Doctor to visit these different crews. Yeah. There's nothing you can come up with that's going to convince me that that's a good idea. It just doesn't work. And I feel bad because I'm a huge Trek fan, and I'd love for this to pull it off because it should feel like a multi-Doctor story. It should feel like we got the crews together, and it doesn't. Never does.
Don't cross the stream.
Don't cross the streams. They just don't work. In relation to this news, my first thought was, because I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I should be squealing all kinds of excitement because
I did.
These are two of my favorite things.
And I own the Star Trek, the very bad Star Trek X-Men crossover. And,
I'll use that as my Exhibit A.
But I don't have ill feelings towards this because it's Doctor Who and not X-Men. So
X-Men Star Trek, and I kind of thought, well, maybe.
See, at least this makes a bit more sense because the Doctor and his crew is traveling through space and through time. It's more plausible than the Star Trek crew meeting X-Men, which is set predominantly in present day.
Not necessarily.
Well, the Star Trek crew travel through space and time quite frequently.
I don't know anything about X-Men, and I know you're completely 100% wrong on X-Men being set in present day. X-Men has never been set in present day. It's always been slightly one universe off from the square root of 62 or something. They're never where they're supposed
42.
to be. Yeah, I mean, they're all over. And X-Men especially deals with the multiverse, and we've got this, that, and the other thing. And the plausibility hook was there just from the standpoint that X-Men's always been very, very big into these are genetic mutations. There's a science behind the reason these people have powers. Sense. Okay, so you've got me there. I will kind of go into it. And
I guess I never felt that X-Men was as far in the future as Star Trek.
Well,
it's not.
It's not. But
see, that's where I have the problem.
That's where they got to. Well, that's where they tried to go with it because it's a multiverse thing. So in this particular multiverse, time they're just it's the next gen multiverse as opposed to. It didn't work. I kind of feel that way about this. Is like, well, yeah, and I hope that this is not something that the Doctor just hasn't visited this particular time period in Earth history. I hope that this is going to be like a separate bubble universe that they've managed to cross over into and shouldn't have been able to, and now they're kind of stuck trying to figure out, or maybe the Enterprise has come over into the Who universe and they're trying to figure out how to get them home.
That would be cool.
Something along those lines I would hope is where they're going with this, as opposed to just the TARDIS materializes on the bridge and hilarity ensues, because I really have reservations about how that would work.
How do you think Picard will react to the Doctor? I imagine it being very similar to his reactions to Q. He will not like the Doctor.
Initially, I don't think he would, but Picard has no reason to not like him, other than the fact that the Doctor is going to come across as a bit know-it-all and insufferable, and there will probably be a Q reference.
Is the key word there.
Insufferable being the key word.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
the Doctor does have a tendency to be bossy.
Yeah,
and Picard won't stand for that.
But Data will be the equalizing force that will figure things out and say, well, no, theoretically that is possible, and Picard will back off. And realistically, all the Doctor has to do is whip out the psychic paper and go, do what I tell you, and the crew will go, okay.
The militaristic aspect of
it'll be overridden by that. The other thing, and obviously comics, we've kind of established that comics don't really count in the continuity of any of this stuff, as cool as they are. That they
Bite
just
your tongue.
Well, here's my thing. When you go down and you look, we've already established within the Doctor Who universe, within the show. In Impossible Astronaut, the woman comes out of the bathroom in the White House and sees the silence and goes, "Oh, is that like a Star Trek mask?" So we've now established that Star Trek is a show within the Doctor Who universe.
And then in closing time, making reference to a Star Trek Beam Me Uppy.
This is like a Star Trek Beam Me Up thing. They've done it repeatedly. Doesn't count, but there's a novel written by Diane Dune called is it My Enemy, My Ally? One of the Star Trek novels, where it's set on the original Enterprise, the refit. And they're installing this new holodeck technology. It hasn't got to the point where it's the whole room like it is in Next Gen, but it's just an emitter that they can project things on a stage. And one of the first things that they do is, well, we're feeding in with old programs from Earth. And at that moment, a loud wheezing noise fills the room. And Kirk looks up at the stage, and a blue box materializes on the stage in the rec room. And a man with curly hair, a foppish hat, and an incredibly long scarf pokes his head out of the box and says, "Pardon me, is this Heathrow?" And Kirk says, "Wow, is that guy lost?" Now, as a fanboy, I read that and squeed because it was just kind of cool. But they did it tongue-in-cheek, and they acknowledged the fact that this is an old Earth program. So, not that we'd count novels as continuity in the Star Trek universe, because they don't. But if they did, Doctor Who is now a television program within that universe. So now you're trying to take these two separate entities and ram them together in a crossover, and I'm really nervous about it. I should be excited, but I can't quite get over the hump. I'm going to go into it with an open mind. I'm excited to see it, and it makes sense because IDW owns the rights to both, and they've been crossing over.
Anything they can.
Well, they did the Contagion story arc where they had a zombie outbreak, and it ran from Ghostbusters to G.I. Joe to Star Trek to Transformers. And it was the same outbreak in all four of those universes, which didn't make a lick of sense to me. And I didn't buy the issues, but I kind of sort of followed along with what everybody was saying about it. I was like, yeah,
I'm sorry, if Batman can fight Predator, this is just as plausible to me.
I disagree. I think Batman Predator is a much more logical crossover.
Well, then they can work within the same universe because there's no conflicting evidence.
Well, yeah, but I just look at that and I think,
I don't know.
it just seems ridiculous to me.
I'm very hopeful.
Superman confronted Alien as well.
Yeah, that's true. And then the two of them teamed up against Alien versus Predator.
Which was a step too far, but I'm
Yeah,
very
agreed.
I'm very hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful, and I will keep my opinions reserved. And I looked at Mel. I was like, of course, the really aggravating thing here is I'm going to have to buy this stupid series. IDW's already got my money. They just, you know who we need to get more money from? That Collins kid. He doesn't fork over enough. So now, all right. So,
Well,
IDW just opened your wallet and took what
they did.
Almost thievery.
Did you hear that? That was the sound of my money flying away. So come May, I will plop myself down on the table and I will read the Doctor Who Star Trek crossover, and I'll follow it along for however many issues it is. And then I'll open my mouth and say something about it.
Can we put that on the schedule for review?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it.
Do you guys want to hear that? Sound off, those of you out there. Do you want us to talk any more about Star Trek than we already do? No, shut up, Sean.
IDW just gave us an excuse.
This validates all of the other arguments. They weren't tangents at all. They were Doctor Who related. Quick, IDW, crossover with something else.
IDW just did one of our favorite words. They retconned us.
The only thing you guys aren't allowed to cross over into Doctor Who is Lost.
That would
Amen.
be so cool.
Amen. No.
That would be
Amen.
awesome.
No.
What better fits on the
No.
island than the TARDIS?
I can't believe we spend as much time talking about Lost as we
would have
do.
felt compelled to rescue all those people,
would have
and
showed
that
up.
show would have ended.
He would have solved. He would have.
Although that would have been a better ending.
That would have been a way better ending than what happened.
We would have gotten answers. He would have figured everything out about the island.
You know,
It would have been better than a cork.
I at least you admit that. At least you can admit
I
that.
had problems with that.
I almost, at the back of my head, heard the noise of the gauntlet being thrown down. Well, I bet you could write a story that would fix that. And
Sean,
I'm not sure I want to rise to the challenge.
I have some bad news for you.
Somebody else has already done it?
Steve Bloom voiced Jack Shephard in the Lost video game.
Ooh. Yeah, but Steve Bloom also has a voice on Transformers, and I still don't like Transformers, so I can let that slide. I didn't know you knew that.
Did
you just now look this up?
I was showing Sarah when you were
all
telling
the stuff about...
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize he was in.
Steve Bloom's in everything.
He really is. You were speaking of continuity, and you were gracious enough to give to me the Doctor Who Magazine Special Edition 11th Doctor Companion.
Yes.
Season 1, or for the... it covers Series
Season
5.
1. Season 5.
Issue 1 and 2. Series 1 of Matt Smith. And I was reading part of the... I haven't read all of these yet, but I was looking in the connections section for Pandorica Opens and Big Bang. And apparently Stephen Moffat at least canonized one of the novels. In my mind, it kind of canonizes all of them. But it is referenced... River Song referenced various other alien species attuned to the Stonehenge transmissions, including the Chelonians had not appeared in the Doctor Who TV series, but it had been introduced in the 1993 novel The Highest Science by Gareth Roberts, published in the series Doctor Who New Adventures.
So because she name drops them in... Is this Pandorica or Big Bang?
It's in Pandorica Opens.
She name drops these aliens in Pandorica Opens. That suddenly becomes canon from something that was originally introduced in a novel.
Yeah.
I'm totally okay with that.
And in my mind, canonizes all the novels. Of course, I haven't read all the novels, so I don't know how much that conflicts.
The problem is when it does conflict is when you get to issues like, or books like Human Nature, which is the seventh
rewritten.
Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And Jubilee, which is the basis of Dalek. So
Human Nature. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of something else. Never mind.
No, you can't fix that one.
It's
a remake.
But the Silurian two-parter in Series 5 is essentially a remake of the Silurians.
No, it's not.
Well, there's
it's
a lot
not.
of elements.
Read Human Nature. Watch Human Nature. It's essentially the same story,
exact
the
same
same
story.
plot.
It's adapted
just
from-
been adapted to
by the same author. I mean, not
Same
the.
thing can
It
be
is
said-
the same author.
Same thing can be said about the audio adventure in Dalek, yeah?
No.
No, it's not even... I thought that was really close,
well, yes,
too.
a Jubilee and Dalek, yes,
Yeah,
are
that's what-
absolutely
yeah.
the same. Yeah, actually, you can kind of fix those two, but yeah, Human Nature is the real sticking point on everything. And,
I would
and a lot
almost...
of there was a lot of debate and fandom over the how continuity worked when you do something like that.
Well, Shada would be another one I would think that would. I mean, can we take an episode that was written but
Slated to-
never
It
aired,
didn't air though. I think
It's
airing
partially filmed, never aired, and then turn around and do it as a webisode?
No. Well, what happens is the webisode, because it becomes readily available, it becomes
It kind of replaces it and becomes
yes.
canon, but it's also been done as a book.
Now
It's also been done as a
yeah, exactly. And
so-
Well, it's
you
coming
run
out
into
as a book.
issues
Yeah.
there as well. Well, it was released as a book at one other time too. I think it was. This will be a re-release. This is a retreatment to make it essentially more Douglas Adams like.
Oh.
Yeah,
But will it still be Eighth Doctor?
I don't know. Oh yeah, this one will be This one will be
Eighth Doctor?
this will be Fourth Doctor.
The webisode is Eighth.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
I
a
didn't
Paul
realize
McGann
that.
story in the anime, Flash anime style.
Well,
I was going to mention something, but I lost it.
I have one other piece of news before you move on. Whenever you're, are you not ready for? You
ready?
Okay. I just received email. This is Gallifrey One's February 2012 update email newsletter for the 23rd annual North American Doctor Who celebration, February 17th through 19th, 2012. Hot off the press, even though they didn't print it. Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
I had to scroll up. Now let me... Oops, I didn't go to... Did I go right? Where is it?
Way to be prepared, Sean.
Despite contrary beliefs, Sylvester McCoy will not be appearing at Galley.
That's what it says.
Guests. Some guest updates to report. We're happy to welcome actor Matt Ripley, who will be in town for the weekend and joining the 10th Planet event folks in the dealer's room. Matt was featured in the Torchwood episode, Captain Jack Harkness, as the captain. He's also had an extensive film and TV career. Also, actress Amber Benson, Buffy, will be returning for Gallifrey 1 on Saturday.
Oh, I didn't know she had been before.
Meanwhile, we are saddened to announce that actress Chase Masterson, has had to withdraw from this year's convention due to a family emergency.
Chase Matheson?
She was Lita the Dabu girl on
Oh,
DS9.
yeah, that's right.
I was very much looking. She tweeted me actually. I was very much looking forward to seeing her, so I'm kind of sad on that. But we send Chase our best wishes and look forward to seeing her next year. And the big news. You ready?
Yep.
Well, there isn't any. But
I
just
know,
thought that
because
was
I went to the website to make sure you weren't allowed to.
You were worried. You were worried.
I was going to go. You were either going to lie about it, and I was going to go, nope, I'm right here on the website, and it was not there. Let's move on to feedback.
Sylvester McCoy's coming.
Feedback.
Feedback. We've got some feedback.
We added snaps this week.
Snaps.
All right. So our first bit of feedback. Unfortunately, I can't open my mail. Dang it.
Way to be prepared, Glenn.
I'm the one that's supposed to be here. Oh, shoot. That's okay. I don't need that. Gmail. All right. Give me a second here. I gotta find it. I wasn't ready. I did a last bit. I pulled
You
one on.
rearranged
I
things
pulled
the
a
last
last minute reschedule. Fast our show meeting, and I messed this up. So my apologies for the big blank space there. However, I have found Holly's email. Holly from Wisconsin.
Hi, Holly.
HollyMac79. She writes, "Hey guys, great last episode. A look back at RTD's run. I have to say that looking back and ranking the series and specials, I have to say that seasons 1, 2, and 4, and a majority of the specials are my favorite. Not that I didn't like Series 3 with Martha. I can't quite put my finger on what but it seemed to me like Series 3, there was almost a mid-series slump, while most shows in that season really start to pick up steam. Then with Series 4, it picked up steam again. I'm not sure that it's because we were getting used to a companion that was not Rose, or just how Martha and the Doctor were interacting with each other in the few episodes of Series 3. If any of you have any better idea of, or if I'm way off base, let me know. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Keep up the fantastic work. She says fantastic. Holly from Wisconsin. So, thank you, Holly.
If Christopher Eccleston were here and commenting on our work, it'd be fantastic. Thank you, Holly.
I don't know, because
I don't know if I agree. I really enjoyed Series 3.
I did too. To me, if anything slumped, it was Series 2 for me. Just a brief period in Series 3. Later in Series 2 is what slumped for me. I really enjoyed the fresh look at Martha and the new approach to a companion. Even though Martha still carried over she was someone pining for the Doctor. Yeah. I don't want to say she was a more intelligent companion than Rose, but she took a more intellectual approach to things, and I think that was a refreshing change for me. So I'm not sure why Series 3 would have felt that way to you.
Well, and I think I agree with you, and I think Series 2 also kind of stumbles a little bit because the Doctor is trying to find his feet after his regeneration. I think David Tennant really starts to really make it his own and truly come into the character more in Series 3 than he does in Series 2.
Yeah, see, I don't.
And I think a lot of that is he's being not necessarily weighed down, but I think some of the history with Rose lends to that.
Woo!
What?
Weighed down, huh?
No, not weighed. No, that's why I said not weighed down.
Not necessarily weighed down, but that's where your mind went and your mouth said it.
I'm trying to think of another adjective, but we've seen Rose with Christopher Eccleston, and I think the two of them are fantastic together. And then it's Rose and Tennant, and I don't know. It just, for me, Rose will always be with Eccleston.
See, I'm going to contrast that, though, because I think David Tennant stepped in the series and hit the ground running. And I think the first half of the season is tremendous and phenomenal. I think where Series 2 falls down is some of the writing. We run into things like Love and Monsters and Fear Her. And then,
but you love Love and Monsters.
I do love Love and Monsters, but it's such a different episode. And I'm the first to admit I had to go back and look at it at a different perspective to finally enjoy it. So that's why I think that the season, because that's our first, we get our first Dr. Light episode there too. So there's another issue where we don't see much of the Doctor and Rose in that episode. And so I think it really starts to just kind of putter out towards the end of the season. And while
and then it ramps up at the very end.
That's just it, though. I think part one of that two-parter still suffers from that. It's just not quite there. It's not until we get to the end of that it really ramps up, and then the finale, the last episode, really is fantastic. So, I mean, and as a story as a whole, I still rank it high because I have to put those two together. But I just felt like it slumped there. And then coming back off of that and then hitting Martha, giving Martha, bringing in such a great companion. I didn't feel like Season 3 slumped at all. I have reservations with things that happen at the end of the season, but besides
I've always enjoyed Martha, and I love the fact that she came back for so many things, and that she was left in a place.
That was post Season 3, though.
Well, yeah, but no,
that doesn't
what I mean.
Explain why Season 3 would be.
No, but that also endears me to Martha more.
Oh, and makes your enjoyability of Season 3 when you look back on it.
Yeah,
better. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
makes it harder to put it.
We've said before that we kind of think Martha got the short shrift from fandom and in many ways from the Doctor as a companion. That she just never really hit that comfort level, and so much of it was because people were still pining for Rose. Season 3 for me, I think I'd said this to you initially when we first started going through them before we did the podcast or anything. I said that I felt like Season 3 was overall such a strong season, but it had some of the weakest episodes individually in it. Or maybe I reversed that. Maybe I said it had really strong episodes, but I didn't feel it was a strong season.
I can't remember.
I can't remember how I had it worded now, but you could almost say the same thing about 2, because I agree with you in some respects. For me, David Tennant didn't hit the ground running. It took a couple episodes to warm up to him, which happens with almost every Doctor for me after Regeneration.
It's Sarah's Doctor. It took her a little bit to warm up to Tennant.
Yeah.
So I didn't see
with quite honestly, Matt Smith being the exception to the rule, where he took off and went. But Tennant, it wasn't until Girl in the Fireplace that I really, even as much as I love School Reunion, but that
you
was,
were squealing for other reasons.
That was for other reasons. That was for Sarah
the
Jane
Doctor
and,
was
and
such
K9. The
yeah.
Doctor was there, but the next one, Girl in the Fireplace, is what cemented me on David Tennant. The second half of the season, it's like the two-parters. The Cybermen two-parter was really good, and then there were a couple of random individual episodes that they were all right. And then the Devil in the Basement of the Planet.
Satan's Pit. Impossible Planet.
That one was really good, and then there are a couple of weird kind of little episodes, and then the two-parter with the Daleks and the Cybermen at the end. So the two-parters are really good, but then the stuff in the middle kind of lags. So I think maybe that's why Season 2 has that strange roller coaster unevenness to the end of the season. But as far, I don't know, I can't necessarily say that Season 3 was a complete letdown. It does have some of my least favorite episodes.
And some of, as a group, our favorites.
But it does have some of my favorites in it, too. And I kind of, in a way, almost reminds me of the specials, that maybe the highs from Season 3 just kind of allow me to wash out the lows in some ways. The first half of the third season wasn't quite up to par. I mean, we're dealing with planets that we've already been to, and
that was the one thing I didn't like about Season 3 is
kind of rehashing
Rose. Okay, let's do something new. You got a new companion.
Yeah, we get into that. We get into that theme where we feel like we're going to the same places, but I don't know, the approach was so different both times that I liked
most of the
that.
time.
I don't know.
We saw a different part of the same places.
I don't
which
know.
is
Maybe
nice
is it possible to separate the two? That because we're so high on Martha, but maybe we're allowing that to bring the rest of the season up.
That's very possible.
Is it maybe that
I
we're just
don't know,
being clouded
because
a little bit?
I thought the storytelling and writing in her first Smith and Jones, her first outing was fantastic. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Shakespeare Code, not a, me, I'm not a big fan.
You're not a big fan of that one.
Neither
But
was
Deadlock I thought was fantastic. Even though we were revisiting a planet we've been to, we took a whole different approach with it. And so I thought that was a fantastic episode as well. And that's the first time that Martha gets let in on who the Doctor is. And so
I thought Deadlock was okay.
It's got a real strong ending.
Again, Face of Bo raised that episode above.
No, absolutely. And it has a real strong ending. So I'm trying to think what came after that.
I just had it pulled up.
I mean, it's the same season that I get Blink, which is my all-time favorite Doctor Who of new series for certain, and maybe even all-time. Daleks Manhattan. That's a stoic one. But see, I enjoy the Doctor and Martha in that so much that they're really the high points for me in that.
And really,
the stories are not that great.
I didn't mind the Daleks in it either. It was the pig people.
No, the Daleks was a problem too. But Lazarus Experiment, they're not a great one. But then 42 is fantastic. Human Nature, Family of Blood, Blink, Utopia. I mean, that's just it. There's no up. There's with the exception of a few dips, there's no real ups and downs in this series. The most stoic down we have is Daleks two-parter and then the Lazarus Experiment. But beyond that, there's so many grand stories. Sounds of Drums and Last Time Lords I have issues with based on how they were written. But I mean, I totally immensely love John Sim as a master. Yeah. So I mean, it has high points as well. So I don't know.
Maybe we need to flow chart. Have everybody start off the line and on a scale of 1 to 10. How did this episode rate for you? And chart out the whole season.
Yeah.
Up and down and where these episodes are. And then we'll combine everybody's charts together and we'll get an idea of how strong a season was based on what everybody thought of the individuals.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be a way to go. I don't know.
Somebody write an algorithm for that.
So, Holly, I think we have pretty much decided we can't put our finger on it. Long story short, the short answer is we don't know.
I still really like 3.
Let's move on to our next bit of feedback. That's from?
That is from Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy. Am I reading this one?
No, I am.
Okay.
She says, comment question, Dear Vortex Boys. I just wanted to say that I enjoyed your discussion of the Time War. Even though my head was sort of spinning afterwards, that was one of the more complicated and dense discussions you've had, which can be fun from time to time.
Dense as in dumb dense or as in very thick? Which
Yes.
could mean either way. Yeah. No, I
Complicated.
I know what you mean. Yes, complicated. In depth.
There is certainly plenty to discuss about the Time War, and everyone has their own opinions, and I don't think you could ever pin down one set-in-stone timeline of events, not until someone sets it forth in official canon. But until then, podcasts, bloggers, and fans continue to discuss and theorize. Glenn, every time you said plethora, I had to make sure you were using it correctly. When I was in high school, I had an English teacher who used plethora all the time. However, we found out she wasn't using it right. So we had to have a little talk with her that went along the lines of, I do not think it means what you think it means. So now, whenever I hear someone use the word plethora, I have to double check and make sure it's being used right.
Nothing instills a sense of deep-seated satisfaction in your educational experience than having to pull a teacher aside and go, "You're doing it wrong."
She continues to say, I also wanted to chime in on the news of IDW...
No, wait. She doesn't qualify that I used it right? Did I use it right?
She didn't say.
Chrissy,
Apparently,
don't leave me hanging like that.
I think she would have called you out if
I
you
guess
didn't.
she probably would have.
She would have called you out if you didn't.
You honestly think she'd have let that slide?
Silence
if
is
you were using
golden.
it
You're
incorrectly?
right.
Even if
I'm telling you, I read it on my Word of the Day toilet paper. So
even if you didn't, don't question it.
that's right.
I'll vouch for you. You were using it right.
Yeah.
A few too many times, maybe. But
Yeah, but then I was just doing it to do it.
you used a plethora of times.
I also wanted to chime in on the news of IDW Comics doing a Doctor Who Star Trek crossover, and also ask you three a bit of a favor.
Okay.
As a Who fan, I enjoy getting new stories about the Doctor, and I'm slowly getting into the comics. I thoroughly enjoyed The Forgotten, and I have to thank you for bringing that to my attention, and my local library for actually having a copy. Lucky you.
Yeah.
I've looked at our library.
very
We don't
tough to
have
get.
any Doctor
It's
Who.
very
comics.
Thank you, Chrissy's local library.
However, I know very little about Star Trek. My dad watches it on reruns, so I know a little bit, but it's not something I've ever gotten into. Though I do know Captain Kirk from Captain Picard in the original series from Next Gen, and a few other things, but not much else. Therefore, in anticipation of this crossover, not to mention Doctor Who is still off the air until fall, could you provide
It's just in. It's still not on.
could you provide a brief, emphasis on brief, overview of Star Trek? Nothing too fancy. I just want to go over what's important. Major characters, what the Doctor might encounter in a visit to the Star Trek universe. Is there even a word for the Star Trek universe? For example, ours is referred to as the Whoniverse. I know Star Trek is the holy grail of geekdom, and I'm losing my geek card admitting I'm not into Star Trek. But I think any help you could provide would be much appreciated and would help us non-Trekkie Whovians enjoy the story better. Maybe it could be a short segment of a regular podcast or even a side trip episode.
It's not a bad idea.
No, that was a terrible idea. No, Chrissy, that was a fantastic idea. It's terrible to
somebody
give
else.
Sean an idea to do a side trip because it won't be short.
Sean, I think in anticipation, as we get closer to the release, you should write up a blog entry.
Oh, good idea.
That's how
idea.
we tackle it. Instead of taking, knowing Sean, a half hour on the episode
Yeah.
to discuss, to do a brief overview of Star Trek.
Let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me sum up. First, the Earth cooled, and then the dinosaurs came.
I think that would be the best way. But we'll discuss that and possibly get to it.
I
think
work on
after
that for
you're
you.
done reading her email, I would like Sean to give us the brief.
The short.
The short version, because I think we owe it to her since she brought it up for him to at least hit on some of the key characters.
Okay. In an attempt to preserve my geek card, I'm going to go on record as saying I am a fan of Star Wars.
Yay!
I did go see The Phantom Menace in 3D the other day.
Nice job. I haven't even done that, and I'm a Star Wars.
None of us
steeped
have.
in Star Wars geek.
We're all huge Star Wars fans. Jar Jar Binks is still a pain in the butt, but now he's a pain in the butt in 3D.
I'm waiting for Simon Pegg to invite me. We're best buds. He's gonna call me any day now and go, dude, want to go see Phantom Menace?
All right.
Not much improvement, sadly. In reality, the 3D aspect doesn't add much to the movie.
Come on, when he swung his head around, his ears didn't just fly out of the screen at you.
You'd probably be better served staying at home and watching the movie on DVD or Blu-ray, or better yet, watch Empire Strikes Back. I want to know more about the 3D in it.
Can I say that the best tweet I saw all week long was a tweet on Twitter. Oh, obviously, it's a tweet. But there was, I don't remember who did it, but the tweet was, "Dear George Lucas, when we said the first 3 Star Wars, or when we said the prequel trilogy lacked depth, this is not what we meant."
We really need to start crediting these people. When
Yes.
we see these things.
I could probably look it up.
There are so many witty people on Twitter.
That one.
That's a good one.
Anyway, since this week you'll be tackling the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who as a whole, I want to pop in with some thoughts of my own. Every showrunner of Doctor Who throughout the years is known for something important. For good or ill, sometimes both. RTD will forever be known as the guy who brought Doctor Who back after being off the air for so long. I would go so far as to say that he is the reason I am a fan of this show. There is no way that I would have watched any classic Who without New Who to get me started. It's sort of sad for me to admit that now, but it's the honest truth. RTD made Doctor Who work for modern audiences, and he brought in some great ideas for the characters and the stories. There will always be people who complain about this or that, but Whovians do owe a lot to RTD for making the show a success and giving us something new to enjoy and love. Wow. I've just gone on as many tangents as you three don't usually do. I'll wrap up and let you get back to business. Chrissy.
Well, as always, thank you for writing in, Chrissy. And
I completely agree with your sentiments on RTD.
Well, and we won't touch on that part of the email because we're going to give
we'll
our reviews, and we'll try to
our
recall.
Discussion's
Yeah,
gonna be.
we'll obviously try to recall some of that.
First of all, no, I don't think you lose your geek card by admitting you're not a Star Wars or Star Trek fan.
Hang on.
Having not seen Star Wars is a
That would
qualification
be,
of
yes.
losing it. But admitting you don't like Star Trek, that one I'm okay with. I also don't know that I would necessarily consider it a holy grail of science fiction. It is definitely a cornerstone.
It's held very high, but not. I don't know about the Holy Grail.
What would be the?
I don't know. We'll have to ponder on that one.
In a nutshell.
No, wait a minute.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Chrissy, for the sake of this podcast, where Sean is going to answer some of your questions, and it will go in more depth with a blog post later, but I'm giving him 30 seconds to wrap Star Trek up for you, so you have a little bit of a satisfaction and just a glimpse into what what I foresee as a very long blog post is going to really entail.
It'll be Cybermen bobbling.
Before you start, can I give you some advice?
Sure.
Stick to Next Gen, since that's what the series.
No.
That's what the comic's going to focus on.
She said Star Trek. She did not say Next Gen. You ready, Sean?
I'm ready.
Go.
Star Trek is all about hope. It is humanity 300 years down the road from now. It is grounded in real life, but it's a futuristic real life. It is us after we've moved out and kind of taken over the universe and become cool. And hopefully a little bit enlightened along the way. And yes, there are villains and there are heroes and there are things like you would expect with any science fiction show, but it's all good.
3, 2,
You did
1.
less than 30.
You got it. I didn't get any characters in there, but I'll forbid it. Yeah. I'll forbid it. I'll forgive it.
She's already realistically, she's already a step ahead on that since she knows Kirk from Picard. I mean, that's kind of a huge step there.
Absolutely.
So,
but
I will go in full depth.
I really like the idea of a blog post that would just for those people that don't know Star Trek to kind of give.
I know you would like that
impression.
because you're going to not allow me to talk.
And it's content.
And Sean knows more Star Trek than I know quite a bit. He knows more than either of us.
I'm like the lowest tier here. Even Keith knows more Star Trek than I do. So I'm almost certain you've seen all of Star Trek, at least every episode at least once, maybe.
I don't know if I've seen all of the original series.
Oh, okay. That's the only.
I haven't seen
that and Next Gen are the only two I've seen every episode.
I don't think I've even seen every episode of Next Gen. I've seen every single episode of Deep Space Nine.
Right. Okay.
But I hit the major Next Gen episodes. I just missed a
couple. You know what's quite honestly what's sad is I like to think of myself as the biggest Star Trek geek, and I probably have forgotten more Star Trek than I ever knew Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But that's probably not true because I've seen every episode of original series or animated series. Pretty sure I've seen all of Next Gen, most of Deep Space Nine, but I missed a lot of the final season.
Oh, the final season's so
probably only 3 or 4 seasons of Voyager and the first season of Enterprise. And I'm really missing some big gaping holes in the latter era
I haven't
stuff.
Even seen any of Voyager.
But see, you also have a grand number of grand number of novels.
Now, yeah,
and comics.
There's a lot of novels and comics and extraneous media that I am
truthfully, and I don't know. I'm not going to put a label on it, but truthfully, your favorites are the original crew and the Next Gen crew. I mean, those one probably outweighs the other, but those are the ones that you focus on most when you go into even like expanded universe. Those are the things you.
For the most part, somebody once said, people ask what's your favorite Star Trek series, and I can't do it because it's like picking one of my favorite children. And I can totally relate, even though I don't have children.
When you have children, it's easier. No, I'm just
kidding. Somebody asked Steve Bloom that. They said, what's your favorite character to voice? And he goes, that's kind of like asking me which one of my fingers do I like the best. I need all of them. Maybe that's a better way to put it. But if I was forced, honestly, to pin down and pick a favorite, I would have picked Deep Space Nine. The drama in that one is so much beyond. But it's also... There goes Keith knocking over our partitioning wall.
Just the Predator.
The drama in that is so much beyond what they did in some of the other series. They kind of stepped out and took some risks with the show. So, but I'll get to that. I'll put it all in a blog post and be thorough. So
you sounded a little like Twiggy there when you went beep 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 beep.
Who's going to be at Planet Night? Well, he is. He's going to be at Planet Comic-Con.
Dressed up as
the actor in the suit. Mel Blanc will not be at Planet Comic-Con, but that would have been enough reason for me to go.
Yeah, if they could have resurrected Mel Blanc, got him to Comic-Con, I think a lot of people would have showed up for that. Our next bit of feedback...
That would have been big news, too. This just in, Mel Blanc's back.
Our next bit of feedback comes from... I always hate to say this because I don't like to call anybody names, but from Phil, also known as Odd Duck Phil.
Odd Duck Phil.
Sean, take it away.
How come I always get stuck with the Odd Duck? Why do I got to read his emails? I'm kidding. Phil.
You're his friend.
Yeah, there's that. I'm his friend. Phil writes, comment question. Hey, who peekin'? I'm not making that up. He actually wrote, well, maybe he didn't. I don't know. Hey, who peekins? Enjoyed your Time War podcast. I forgot about some of the amazingly named doomsday devices, such as the Nightmare Child and the Horde of Travesties. I can't help but wonder if the Silence, the Fields of Trenzalore, and maybe even the First Question are in some ways fallout from the war and the Doctor's choice to end it as he did.
Ooh.
I know the Time War is Davies' toy, and Moffat hasn't really done much with it. But to see the Silence gain control of a Dalek or Time Lord weapon from the war, or to discover that there's somehow a casualty as a result of one of these weapons, would be pretty cool. While a great deal of Davies' entire run was dealing with fallout from the Time War and the Doctor's actions to end it, I think a tie-in would add a needed bridge between the Davies and Moffat eras. Maybe it's just me, but there seems to be a distinct separation between the two that rivals the separation between Classic and New Who.
I don't know if I agree with him there because there's several Time War references in Doctor's Wife. He talks about how there's no more Time Lords left, how he's so desperate to find them because he thinks they're alive.
That's dealing more with the separation aspect and not the reason for why.
Well, he does. He has that great line, too. Fear me, I killed all of them. And I agree that there are a lot of times in that, but that's one episode.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
it's written by Neil Gaiman as opposed to something penned by Stephen
That's very
Moffat.
true.
Moffat has kind of made, I think, a conscious decision to stay away from that. And Separation, I don't know if it's as great as the gap between classic and New Who. I will agree that it is as great a gap between some of the other producing teams that we've had taken over. For example, the adventures that Patrick Troughton went on, that we've watched several of recently, feel very different from the Unit era that came along and followed with Pertwee, and the show kind of reinvented itself. And that the Unit era in Pertwee's time feels very different from the initial Tom Baker runs, where it was kind of getting into the Hammer Gothic horror elements. So, I mean, there's that kind of separation between the two. But
it almost seems like the show obviously continually reinvents itself.
yeah, and like Madonna.
And I mean, think about it.
Did you just compare Doctor Who to Madonna?
Yeah,
Did you just compare Doctor Who to Madonna?
yeah.
Well, the difference between Doctor Who and Madonna is
One's
Doctor
awesome.
Who is actually British.
Yes, I'll agree with that. Madonna's timeless.
But not British.
But not British.
As much as she tries to pretend to be. Even when she comes out at the
she married Guy Ritchie. What do you
Golden
expect?
Globe Awards, and then she's been away from the UK for I don't know how long, and she still comes out and speaks in some sort of faux British accent. Come on. Sorry.
I spent a week in British once, and I have an accent.
You spent a week in British?
Yeah. That's a place.
I spent a week in Brits once.
For a whole week?
A whole week. Wow.
Simultaneously? Were you waiting for their shipment of jelly babies to
I
come
was.
in?
Just for you, Sean.
And by the way, you, who are there every week and go back and go back and go back, how come you never bring me jelly babies?
I want it to be special.
I don't. I want the candy. I don't
You know
need...
how expensive that'll be to bring
I
you
will-
back jelly babies every single week?
I will pay
It's an
you.
imported candy.
I will
It's
pay
very
you for
expensive.
those.
At some point, I won't have to pay rent because I'll be bringing him jelly.
Yeah, you're right.
jelly
Maybe,
babies.
maybe I
Keith
should
pays his
wait.
rent in jelly babies. I love it.
Mel will ask, how come you're a little short this week? You don't want to know. Nom, nom, nom. Phil
There's your weight
continues.
loss plan.
Guess we're not going to be reviewing Trial of a Time Lord anytime soon. The other thing I got is...
No one gets the reference. That was all pre-show.
Oh, it was, wasn't it?
Everybody, there's a collective silence again. What? What does that have to do with Trial of Time Lord?
Let me explain. Nah, that's too much. Let me sum up. We'll explain later. Phil continues. Only other thing I got is Discworld related, so I'll keep it brief.
Did you just yuck?
Why start now?
He just said yuck.
I didn't say yuck. The thought of us keeping anything brief. Pratchett tried to design the books to be as standalone as possible. I think the first book I ever read was the 12th book in the overall series, and I didn't have any real problems feeling lost, and rarely are there any spoilers to worry about. I do prefer his later books to his earlier ones, as the series started as strictly a parody of the stereotypical fantasy novel that was so popular at the time. They would later become more satire than parody. If you haven't read any of his work, I highly recommend it. Try Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, as it's about as standalone as you can get. Keep up the good work, etc. Duck Phil.
I like the title.
I can't argue with anything Phil brought up about Discworld because he's right. The one exception to the continuity or standalone stuff is the Night Watch stuff. They can still be read out of order, which I've done. But then once I did find that there was a connection and, I remember that character now, I was a little let down that I had done that to myself. But it was still, the book itself was fine. So
It's that way with some Christopher Moore books, that you don't realize characters cross over until you read the book. And you're like, oh, I haven't read this other book, and that's where they came from. And
That's true. And they're all standalone because I've only read a few Christopher Moore, but they definitely work within their own right as well. So.
yeah,
but thank you for writing in, Phil.
Yep.
as always.
And
As
our next
always.
bit of feedback is going to be an audio piece that Dr. Phil sent in. And we'll take a listen to that now.
Greetings, defenders and protectors of the Vortex. Hey, it's Dr. Phil. Just wanted to call in about your very, very thought-provoking archive on the last great Time War. I'm not one who follows the comics, so Sean's awesome teasing aside, that made me giggle to no end. I just have to say it's probably been my favorite archive you guys have done, discussing what really is a very difficult and ambiguous topic in the Who universe. And as I don't follow the comics, all this information is new to me, and that makes me very excited, because not that I'm in any way an encyclopedic knowledge of all things Who, but definitely have my areas where I like to play in and learn about. So that thoroughly ignited my imagination. A DMAT gun en masse, that nothing could be more the Sneetch's ultimate weapon. Nonetheless, I was one thing about the Time War that's always bugged me, and it's only because of the fact that Baker's doctor, or Tom Baker's doctor, was a big favorite of mine growing up, is, in the expanded universe, of course, we know that Leela stayed on Gallifrey with K9, and she married Andred, and their adventures are chronicled in the Gallifrey audios, and Romana, the 2, becomes president of Gallifrey with her K9 there. It's like, well, did the people we care about and the nice Time Lords all just snuff it in the Time War? And I just wanted to, before, I'm going to try to make this a brief feedback, but I just thought maybe you guys might want to share this one little thought, because a couple of years ago at the 2010 Chicago TARDIS, I got to interview Gary Russell about the Gallifrey audios, and it's up on the Adventures in Time, Space, and Music feed. But it was one particular little question that came up, because I just had, just enough courage to ask. And I have to say that the answer definitely surprised and ignited my imagination some more. I want you to feel free to decline my next question. Mm-hmm. In your heart, do you feel that Leela, Romana, and K9 Mark II would have survived the Time War or not? Or is that just one of those question marks you'd rather leave as a question mark?
All I say is, when we did Gallifrey Series 3, and I was saying to Russell, and this was at the time of Series 1 of Doctor Who, and talking about the Time War and stuff, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I want to take Gallifrey at the end of Series 3 to the point where the Time War starts, and we're going to take Lalla and Leela and K9 and Brax and Narvin and put them in this sort of little bubble so they're just protected from the Time War. And Russell said to me, that's great, because I'd hate to think they died. And so in my head, that kind of justifies what we did at the end of Series 3.
Well, I have to thank you for answering that, because that's the one that's the question in my heart. Because while I love many of the characters in the classic series, my favorite that I hope would be a good role model for my daughter, Natalia, would be the second Romana, because I think she's great, smart, good leader, the kind of person I would hope that she would find as a positive role model. And, not that I want her to be involved in the political intrigue, but but no, thank you very much for taking the time and sitting here with me.
My pleasure. I'll talk about Gallifrey till account.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is awesome.
The little nugget there at the end is fantastic, because I think, to me, that qualifies. If it comes from Gary Russell, and Gary Russell had talked to Russell T. Davies about that and qualified that, and this also makes me uber excited to listen to the Gallifrey audios now, because it sounds like they took it up to just before the Time War begins, and I absolutely love the fact that Romana and K9 were safe from the events of the Time War, and it works in their favor, and that's absolutely fantastic.
I'm not excited at all.
Do you like my idea better?
No, I'm already on such a high to try and get to the Gallifrey audios that now it's like, and we're not there yet.
We're getting there, though. We will get there. We will get there. Lots of podcasts to fill. So, but thank you, Phil, so much for enlightening on us. And I'm glad that you got tickled by Sean thinking that you were running to start posts or emails to us each time that we started possibly talking about something that wasn't qualified.
I'm actually a little shocked. I just pegged Phil as a comic guy. I just knew that he was well versed in those, but
He's well versed in many things, though. So.
You know what that means? Mm-hmm. That means, for those of you out there listening, there's an opening in the Traveling the Vortex regulars. Because apparently
our experts,
our panel of experts. Apparently, Dr. Phil is just the audio guy. So now we need somebody
and
for
music
and classic
music
and music. Well, I'm not. He's the audio guy. That covers music.
Okay, I'll get you that.
But we need somebody to cover that post of comics now. So if you're a Whovian and you know everything there is to know about the Doctor Who comic universe, well, by God, you need to start sending us feedback.
Yeah,
absolutely. Correct us
anything
when
to
we're
court
wrong.
more feedback. You bet. Absolutely. So, thanks again, Phil, for sending that bit of audio in.
And thanks for sending it as audio feedback, because it's always nice to get a little break and stretch our legs when we have a break where we pause to insert this, and we just found out it's snowing outside.
Yes, we did.
That was a new revelation to us.
I'm going to blame Phil, not Dr. Phil, not Odd Duck Phil, but Phil the Groundhog. It's his fault.
Punxsutawney Phil.
Snow.
6 more weeks of winter.
It should be noted that this is our first actual snowfall and accumulation
in Topeka,
in most of Kansas.
Yeah, it's not just snowing.
Because it's west of here. Well,
Western.
even Manhattan and whatnot, which is just an hour down the road, has gotten a significant amount of snow on the ground. So
it's our first accumulation here in Topeka.
It is. West,
and it's February.
east of St. Mary's. So anyway, well. That runs the gamut of feedback. So what are we talking about this week, Sean? I don't remember. What was on the schedule?
RTD.
Russell T. Davies.
Oh, that was recounting the days.
We will be.
The
Russell T. Davies
RTD.
era.
The RTD of RTD.
Did you know? For example,
there's your episode title.
RTD of RTD.
This is going to be a podcast full of revelations. There's an R.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Do you know the T in Russell T. Davies stands for Tiberius?
Another Star Trek reference. Good job, Sean.
I'm quickly Wikipediaing this.
It doesn't. I made that up.
Don't you know Sean by now?
I know.
Rule 1, Sean lies. Well, where do we start? Obviously,
let's
with
start
series
with the beginning.
1. Yeah.
And the fact that Russell, we are forever indebted to Russell.
Absolutely.
As Chrissy mentioned, he is the one that brought Doctor Who back to us. And many people wouldn't be introduced to it if it weren't for him.
That's absolutely true. And I think we're especially blessed that sorry, I did it on purpose. I think we're especially blessed that not only that Russell T. Davies had such a passion to bring one of our favorite television series back to television where it belongs, but also that he himself was a Doctor Who fan at heart. And I think that's where it certainly was placed in the best hands, I think, at the time. We got somebody that was very enthusiastic, somebody that was very passionate about bringing this series back to television. He also was one that could calculated the way to bring it back and to sell it to producers or to sell it to the BBC and make it television ready again. And we owe him a debt of gratitude, despite the fact that there are some things that Russell did that we quite often question. But we certainly we do owe him a debt of gratitude for bringing Doctor Who back to the airwaves.
Well, not only that, like Chrissy pointed out, he made it for the modern age.
He did.
And then, in addition to that, brought back so many great things. He brought the best of Classic Who back into the new series, and he could have viewed this as a reboot, but he didn't. And that's one of the things I love the most, is the fact that he doesn't view this as a reboot. It is a continuation. And most other people would have seen it as, this is new, this is different. It may be Doctor Who, but we're doing a different take on it. But he didn't do that.
Not to mention that had anybody else brought this back, not maybe anybody else, but there's a majority of people that had they brought this back, I think they would have strayed away from any mention of Classic Who
Yeah.
for a while anyway, until we got going. Russell realized that it was important to grab the new viewer as well as the old viewer. And I think that was another calculated intention to put the Autons in the first episode. That it's a familiar enough adversary for the classic viewer, but it wasn't so out there that you had to know anything about them for the new viewer.
He did a good job of retelling that, or re-explaining
exactly
who the Autons were.
And so putting the Autons in anybody else probably would have shied away from putting any sort of nods to Classic Who in the first episode of the returning series. They would have waited, or they would have put somebody iconic in like the Daleks that people would have realized. And I don't think it would have worked as well. It would have felt stoic by then. And I don't
think the Daleks would have worked from the. It's almost too big.
It is too big.
Let's
big.
bring them back and do it this way.
And along those same lines, by introducing Dalek with just one Dalek in 3 or 4 episodes in, that was a genius move as well, because 5 episodes in, as Sean is correcting me. That was a genius move as well, because it just focuses on one Dalek. It's an iconic enough of a villain, but you don't have you don't have such the grand story that you have to have, or would have felt that you would have had to have for a Daleks episode. And so by doing it the way that he did, that was very well planned as well.
Well, it also allowed that slow potboiler build to the Time War. What has been going on, and why has Doctor Who been off of our TVs for so long, and what has he been up to in this wilderness years that we were all very upset about. And, we get little sprinkles until we get to the Dalek episode, and then it all kind of starts to come tumbling out. And if the Daleks had been there from the get-go and the Time War was still conceptualized as this is the reason why, I think they would have felt obligated to show us some of it or explain a little bit more of it. And I think it, as we discussed last week, probably would have lost some of its mystique. It had been out there right at the beginning.
I'm looking at Wikipedia.
Of course you are.
And this is very interesting.
Of course it is.
During the late 1990s, Davies lobbied the BBC to revive the show from its hiatus and reached the discussion stages in late 1998 and early 2002. His proposals would update the show to a better-suited 21st century audience. The series would be recorded on film instead of videotape. The length of each episode would be doubled from 25 to 50. Episodes would primarily take place on Earth in the style of the Third Doctor unit episodes. And Davies would remove excess baggage from the mythology, such as Gallifrey and the Time Lords. Thankfully, that didn't stay in for very long.
That's how you pitch something.
But he did.
For a while.
No, he did remove it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's how better to write Gallifrey and the Time Lords out. We killed all of them and blew up the planet. I mean,
it's true.
He did exactly that.
His pitch competed against 3 others. Dan Friedman's fantasy retelling, Matthew Graham's Gothic-style pitch, and Mark Gatiss' reboot, which made the Doctor the audience surrogate character instead of his companions. So the audience would have been the companion instead of the Doctor, or instead of somebody else. Was what I take from that. Davies also took cues from American fantasy television series such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Smallville, most notably Buffy's concepts of long series story arcs and the Big Bad. And my Wikipedia page shows the link for Matthew Graham as purple. So,
what does that mean?
That means Matthew Graham ended up writing Fear Her, Rebel Flesh, and The Almost People, which means I looked him up. Before.
Oh, I see. Okay, I can follow you now. Which,
boy, he had some really gritty episodes.
Well, yeah, based on those episodes, do we now then assume that Russell Graham doesn't quite have a grasp on the?
I'm very thankful that he wasn't the one that brought Doctor Who back.
Or does it mean that his take would have been that far out?
Very possible.
I don't know.
Dan Freeman still did a webcast audio drama of Doctor Who with the 7th Doctor, Sophie Aldred, and somebody else that I don't recognize. He directed it. He didn't write it. But I just thought that was interesting. That I didn't know that Russell was going up against 3 other people who
I didn't either.
Eventually did other stuff for Doctor Who. And they're different ideas for the show.
I think for me, what this does is it kind of solidifies in my mind a lot of work that Philip Segal did. Because if Russell is championing the BBC as early as 1998, he did say 1998, didn't he?
He said in the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Late 90s. This falls on the heels of
the movie,
Doctor Who, the movie, which debuted in '96. So there was
it was '98.
That spark of see, this can come back, this can work. That maybe they took it and they went this far with it, but they didn't go far enough. We need to go even further to continue to update this and bring it into the now. Which
we know that it's well documented that the movie did well in the UK. It didn't do well here,
but did well.
But it had a lot of extenuating circumstances in the US. But it did well in the UK.
It was on Fox. It got canceled before it started.
And it was up against, and it was up against Roseanne. So final episode of Roseanne.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly does sort of qualify a lot of Segal's work, but focusing on Russell being the one that gets the gift to bring it back, I don't think there are a few people that could have done it better than Russell did, and Russell did a fantastic job, and I think Russell is very strong is Russell's very good at writing. Russell T. Davies is very good at writing characters. He paints a picture with characters that are very endearing, very lovable, very passionate, the characters are very strong in every episode he's ever written. It doesn't matter what you think of the episode or not. It really has well-painted characters, well-created characters. And that's where he's really strong. I think a lot of his stories get a little too grand and over the top, but overall he paints a great picture with characters, and I think that's what that endears his stories to people, or the fact that the character development of them.
He writes grand spectacle, but I think at the same time he gets bogged down in the grandness of how spectacular the spectacle is.
He forgets some of the logic of the
maybe that's a really good way to put it.
I think Russell also tries. He sets the bar too high for himself. So once he sees what he's done and what he's produced, I think he goes back and realizes, well, now I've got to do bigger next time. And I think that's where the stumbling point is for him. Whereas Moffat, he'll write some things that kind of have a grandness to them, but it's never too much that he can't top himself again later. So
maybe Moffat tempers himself early on.
That could be,
and
maybe that's
still
calculated.
I don't know.
He's going to let it all fly in the 50th, and this has all been just warm up.
That's very possible. I honestly do hope that Moffat continues on past the 11th Doctor's regeneration.
I think that the other thing that the series had going for it, and that Russell had going for it, was casting of Christopher Eccleston. I think a lot of people were quite concerned, and I know that there was a lot of hoopla over the initial stills we saw of Eccleston in his costume. He did not look like the Doctor, and a lot of people brought that up. But I think Chris embodied the spirit of the Doctor, and that was what was important. Yeah. And while Russell introduced the character as a darker, more stoic character than we had seen in the past, and that was the nice thing, is because he had set up this idea of a time war and all of the Time Lords being gone, and this lone Doctor out there now who's having to deal with the repercussions of the Time War and what he did to end it. And Chris Eccleston took that and really ran with it, and I think gave us a portrayal of the Doctor, aided by Russell's direction, that was really unique to the series as well. So it gave us not only a recognition of Doctor Who from the past for those of us that were fans, but it also gave new viewers a new palette, a new place to start, and sort of feel like they were getting in on the ground floor and didn't have to go back to the old series in order to enjoy watching this series.
Does anybody know how far in advance Russell had kind of planned out things? Like, for example, you mentioned we know that Eccleston had kind of come to him initially and said, I think I only want to do one season. And he was like, as long as I can get you, I'll bow to whatever you want to do. When he sat down and kind of pitched it to him and said, okay, here's what we've got, is that you're going to be the lone doctor, there's going to be this horrible time war that maybe we'll delve into, maybe we won't, blah, 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 whatever. How much of that do you think he gave him? I mean, do you think it was Eccleston's kind of just extrapolating from the little nuggets he got? I mean, because we've heard stories of some people who you don't know. You sit down, you get the new script, and you open it up, and you go, "Oh, so this is what's going to happen this week."
And then you have Alex Kingston, who knows from beginning
beginning
to
end, this is what's going to happen to you and how you're involved with it.
I think my opinion is that in order to get Chris, and knowing that he only had him for a limited time, that he probably had to lay out a lot of what was going to happen and how he was going to get from point A to point B. So I would suspect that Christopher Eccleston knew a lot more than anybody about where we were going with this and how to do it. And I think that the evidence in that is the fact that Christopher Eccleston didn't change from beginning to end. His doctor grew as a character, but Chris, rightfully so, played it the same way all the way through. You didn't see a massive change because it wasn't like he had gleaned little nuggets and realized, okay, I've got to fit these shoes now. Right. It was like he came into it knowing what was expected and how this doctor was going to play out. And so I like to suspect that Christopher Eccleston knew a lot more from Russell what was going to happen and how this doctor was going to pretty much be the renaissance of Doctor Who in the 21st century.
Had you guys seen Eccleston before you saw Who?
The only thing I think I had seen him in was the zombie
28 Days Later.
That's the one. 28 Days Later.
That's the only one I've. Looking at his IMDb page,
I'd seen him in Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh yeah, I guess he was.
He was the villain in that, and
I don't remember him from that actually.
Well,
he's so memorable in 28 Days Later.
That's just it. 28 Days Later is a much stronger. I mean, I like Gone in 60 Seconds. I think it's a fun movie, but his character is very.
It's kind of overshadowed by Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie.
His weird shtick is that he's a furniture maker. I mean, that's a kind of a really. You're the bad boss that needs 50 cars, but you're going to make furniture. And then to really drive home the point that he's evil, at one point he's making a coffin. It's like,
and he was in The Others too. I don't remember him in The Others either.
Oh, see, I saw The Others before that, but I don't remember.
I didn't see Others until after 28 Days Later. But
well, I saw that before Doctor Who, though, so I just don't remember that.
But
I only barely recognized him from 28 Days Later. In fact, I was probably a few episodes into Doctor Who when I realized who he was and recalled him from 28 Days Later.
And because I came to the Doctor Who party late, because I wasn't watching them initially, it wasn't until Glenn said, "Dude, Doctor Who's back. I didn't even know this." That it started to kind of dawn on me that, and of course everybody's talking, well, this is the guy who was in 28 Days Later and this and the other thing. And it's almost jarring how different, that character is versus his doctor. So it's really unrecognizable anyway.
And of course, I came to this so late. I had seen him on Heroes first.
Oh yeah, because
I'd seen 28 Days Later.
He left Doctor Who and pretty much came over and did Heroes.
Yeah, he did a couple other things and then Heroes, and I loved this character so much, and he's such a mentor, and it's almost a one-off from the Doctor.
That's the problem with Heroes is the character that he plays on there. Yeah, he had so much potential, and it was such a fantastic quality, and it really initially feels like it was a reason to give. Was it Peter that was absorbing powers?
Yeah,
it was really only a reason to give Peter one more power. It is really how it feels after you get done with that storyline, and it's very unfortunate.
That's more of a fall down of Heroes than
absolutely. That has nothing to do with Chris. So I totally enjoyed him on Heroes, and thought he played that character fantastic as well. But stepping back to Russell, I mean, he crafted a first season of Doctor Who that really was captivating. It had a minimal thread line going on that we didn't know about until it's revealed to us in Bad Wolf. And that was neat. I think that was calculated.
Not
I think
even
that
Bad Wolf, Boomtown.
Well, I think that. Well, that's what I meant. Well, yeah, you're right. It was Boomtown. That was the time where I think the realization of what Russell was crafting throughout the first series really hit me, and I realized how clever, maybe not genius, but how clever Russell T. Davies was by introducing this small thread that was going through that was some people recognized sooner than I did, but it was subtle enough that it wasn't it wasn't in your face. It wasn't certainly like Torchwood the next series was throughout season 2, but it was then when I realized, oh wow, this show's in really good hands. He's gonna pull something through from beginning to end of a series, and if this ends up being the last we see of Doctor Who, he did a fine job with what he had to work with, and what he brought back for us. And so series 1, I have nothing but high praise for it because and the more I go back and watch series 1, the more I enjoy series 1. And
there were a couple of episodes that weren't as good as others, but there's so much good in series 1. I'm looking through the list. There's only one episode that I'm like kind of on.
He did only give us one species of alien that I really dislike, and that's the Sylvie. Actually, not even species. That's the family, but I can't remember what the actual species is called. Yeah.
But despite that, there was good elements to those stories, and I don't look at the season list and think I'll skip that one. There's only one, and I probably still wouldn't skip it, and that'd be Unquiet Dead, because there are still some great elements of that.
See, and I get frustrated with the long game.
Really,
that's the one for despite the
Simon Pegg.
I know, despite the addition of Simon Pegg, that's the one that for me is kind of. It's not that it's a bad episode. It's just that's the one from season 1 that I kind of consider the turkey, and it's
see and
frustrating.
Mine's Boomtown.
Honestly, I like Boomtown.
I liked Boomtown.
Boomtown
it showed so much of that darkness of the Doctor.
That's the problem, though. Boomtown, and this is the one with the Slovene woman that. Okay,
you're just so down.
Yeah,
on
I didn't make sure. Well, the problem is,
at least it wasn't anthropomorphized.
I didn't enjoy the Slovene
marshmallows.
I didn't enjoy the Slovene. I enjoyed the story arc in Aliens in London and World War II. I didn't enjoy the Slovene, and so when we were reintroducing them, I just had reservations about that. I think I went to it with a bad attitude. It's not until
I think she spent most of the time in her human body. I didn't have as much of a problem with.
Well, it's not even that.
The opening does feel a little bit like, we're going to go there because she's in the bathroom and she's got the thing and she's unzipping her head and she's getting ready to eat the girl or whatever she's going to do, and then she doesn't, and that's where the episode kind of turns. But
it does turn there, but it's not until the conversation between the Doctor and her at the end that I really start to enjoy the episode, and like it for what it is. But. Yeah, that to me it's not even a turkey for me. I mean, but to me that was the low point is the first 2/3 of that episode, because I really feel like been there, done that. Do we really have to revisit this and the ramifications of her, warping out of there or whatever she does?
Surfboarding.
Yeah, surfboards out of that's what she was intending to do. No, she I don't know, time phases or shifts out of whatever she did to escape the events.
I really like the fact that they expanded on her and gave her so much more depth than what they initially did in the 2-parter.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. Kind of way backwards retcons Aliens of London and World War III.
Yeah,
it kind of adds a little bit more weight to those two stories, which maybe that was the intention. Maybe they got done with that 2-parter and Russell kind of missed the boat there a little bit. I need to,
Well, that 2-parter feels like a grand Russell T. Davies episode, is what it does. A story arc. It's just we're going to
do today, Russell. We're going to blow up Big Ben.
Well, that and what is it? 13 Dowling Street, or what's the 10 Downing Street?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we just destroyed the Prime Minister's residence. I mean, that's like blowing the White House.
Yeah,
and so I mean, that was huge. So I don't know. It's just. The stories, for what they are, I like them, and I love she became Prime Minister later.
Harriet Jones.
Yeah, Harriet Jones, PM, Fidel North. I absolutely love her character. I absolutely love that. I love Rose's interaction. I love Jackie's realization that this is the first instance of when she makes the doctor promise that he's going to protect Rose. And so he makes that his priority. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of good things about it. The Sylvine, it's probably more of the aesthetics of the Sylvine, because we come back and we say, we're modernizing Doctor Who. We're not going to have the sloppy production values that we had.
The rubber monsters.
And then we have the rubber monsters. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's like they're promising we're not going to have this again, and then we have it. So,
season 1 is definitely one that, as I've introduced other people to who have caught on to it, and they're asking, well, what else should I watch? And it's like, well, if you're really into this, you need to go back and watch all the new Who for sure. And so, well, you do it chronologically. So we go back to season 1, and I always feel like season 1, I kind of hand over the box set almost with an apology. Okay, now keep in mind this isn't quite up to the level that we've gotten now. The production values are a little bit higher, and the show's a little more established.
That's because starting this series out, you don't have a lot of money put into it. Because you're not sure what it's going to be.
And honestly, I think some of the storytelling makes up for the
I would
production
agree.
value.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
That's why I say I like.
There's hardly an episode you can discount.
I like
in this
the
episode
Sylvine
because it ties
two-parter.
into Bad Wolf.
I like the Sylvine two-parter in the sense of that it's a pretty well written story. The fart gags are bad. The rubber monsters are bad, but overall, I enjoy the two-part story. I don't think it's horrid.
Yeah. And when I do, in the back of my head, I mean, when I'm apologizing for it, going, okay, now you got to watch this, but kind of keep in mind that they were still getting their feet underneath them, and I'm very.
It's any first season.
Yeah, I mean, it's that. But in the back of my head, it's the Sylvine that kind of jumps up there, and I'm like, what are they going to think when they get to this episode? Are they going to turn it off in disgust and go, I can't believe you made me watch this? Or are they going to be able to press through that and get to the good stuff that winds up coming? And in a lot of ways, I kind of think that very simply encapsulates a lot of what Russell T Davies brought to the table. It was such a Herculean effort to bring Doctor Who back and cross that hurdle that he kind of saved the good stuff for later.
Yeah. That's probably true.
And maybe he was kind of pulling what we accused Moffat of, is saving himself a little bit for, okay, now I got to get a little later into this, and now I can start bringing the good stuff out.
Well, I mean, right after World War III, you get Dalek.
I think Russell T Davies did that. I think he did hold his best stuff back. I feel like he started setting the bar too high early. And the fact of writing great stories, and that's where it.
Well, and that kind of comes at the end with Parting of the Ways.
Because not only are you at the end of a series, but you're at the end of a Doctor, and you've got to give him a good send off.
Yeah.
And doing that in the way that they did it, and then
introducing new people to the idea of regeneration,
which I thought he did. I thought he did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked. There were a lot of things that again felt very calculated about how that transition was handled. That we're switching over doctors, but we can't completely change everything. I mean, we're only one season in. We're going to keep Rose. We're going to keep Jackie. We're going to keep the kind of extended family that had been set up for the Doctor's adventures here, and keep that framework in place. We're just going to switch doctors and move on. So we get into season 2, and David Tennant comes on board, and we get our first Christmas special, which obviously changes up things a little bit, because that's the first one ever. First holiday Doctor Who.
Well, technically, yes, you're right.
Yeah. Well,
Feast of Stephen took place on Christmas, but
which was part of Christmas. Did it air on Christmas?
It did air on Christmas. In fact, that's the one notoriously where the Doctor breaks the fourth wall and wishes the viewers a Merry Christmas.
You're talking Will Hartnell.
Will Hartnell, yes,
the
first Doctor. But anyway, go ahead. That's back when the schedules just ran through Christmas. It wasn't that you made a big event, a television event.
It wasn't a special episode.
Right.
It
happened to run on Christmas or Christmas Eve.
So this is our first big special for Christmas ever. Doctor Who universe. And we kind of build on that and go off in this new direction with this new Doctor. And it's still Russell at the helm, so it still feels very much part of this extension of season 1. And we just kind of keep going and building. And that's kind of the other thing that I've likened to is when I hand over that box set of 1 and apologize a little bit for it, but I'm also explaining that this is the base of the pyramid, that we had to start somewhere, and this is the foundation for it all. You have to see this in order to be able to go with it. And then everything else that he's done afterwards really comes as part of that foundation and where he started. And I think when we were talking about storytelling, so much of what New Who is owes itself to that first season.
Oh, absolutely.
So much of it is in there and built upon the bedrock that is Christopher Eccleston in season 1 or series 1.
And I hope Stephen Moffat almost takes something out of season 1 and brings it back for series 7. And the fact that at first glance, until the end, or until Boomtown, series 1 seems like, aside from the two-parters, standalone episodes.
For the most part,
yeah.
And it's not until you see the end that you realize all of this tied together.
It'd be nice to see him steer back towards that for the new series,
which he's made reference
for
to
what's coming up.
So, but still have that Moffat influence of this is still tied together. You just don't realize it.
Well,
we got to.
You say Moffat influence. I think
Well,
RTD's had that all along. It
RTD,
just was more
yeah.
subtle the first few
Yeah.
seasons.
Exactly, and the more subtlety, more subtle than the crack was in season 5.
You're talking a specific plot influence, not just a let's tie it together.
Oh yeah,
Because I think we got a flavor of
like
that with bringing Dickens back in the weird anti-time
yeah.
Wedding of River song. That was a huge cool moment for me.
Oh, yeah.
to see Dickens. So
just the tying it all together so that it's standalone episodes, but still one cohesive story.
okay, I got you.
Like season 1.
I see what he's saying. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's speaking of season 2, and we bring David Tennant in, and I don't want to downplay the fact that David Tennant is the reason why series 2 is so successful, because I think it is.
I
think,
agree.
I think on the back of Russell's writing, which was very good, David Tennant brought a lot to the series, and I think that's what connected a lot of viewers, because there are a lot more David Tennant fans out there than there are Eccleston fans.
Well, he certainly presided over the new era of the popularity of the show, much like Tom Baker was kind of the ambassador for the Who in the classic heyday. Mm-hmm. I think David Tennant is kind of the ambassador for his era of Who.
But Russell's influences are still there, and Russell's pieces are still there, and I don't think that we would have gotten the 10th Doctor the way we do without a heavy influence or heavy pen from Russell T. Davies, because I think Davies realized that we had to have a different Doctor than we had in Christopher Eccleston, especially since we had such a short run with Chris.
Yeah.
And I think that writing the 10th Doctor the way that he did, and then David Tennant grabbing onto that and really running with what he had to work with was a great combination. And I think those guys to this day are probably the best actor-producer team I have ever seen in any series. They really seem to connect. They really seem to understand each other, and I think that that's what made the series really boost from that point on.
I agree.
I
think the only thing that would rival would be Smith and Moffat. I think those two work well together.
I think that they work together.
They maybe in a different way.
In a different aspect. I think because Moffat was able to cast Matt Smith and guide the show. That's the thing, is the difference that I see in series 5 and series 2 is Moffat's taking everything from scratch. So he and Matt are building something from the ground up.
Yeah.
Whereas David steps in and he has to
stay
with the same sort of ground that Russell's already built, but because they connect so well, he's able to do that and make the 10th Doctor what it is. And I think that's what works.
I could totally see that. Yeah. I could totally see that.
I think that what helps Matt and Moffat is the fact that they're getting to start somewhat from scratch.
They're
it's still a
starting at the ground level,
but they are. We get a new open, we get a new theme music, or variation on theme music. We get a new Doctor, we get a new showrunner, we get a new companion. So they have that going for them. Whereas David Tennant steps in and he has to connect with Russell because Russell's already laid the groundwork. Dave's just going to step in here now and say, okay, this is what this Doctor's going to be, and I think that works really well. And I think I give lots of praise and credit to David Tennant for taking and doing the Doctor the way that he did, because I think that bolstered what Russell was doing and even more solidified the show and helped it a lot. As Sean said, that's where it started to hit its heyday, and that's why you've got a lot of people that associate with David Tennant's Doctor because of the fact that they came on board at that point, and a lot of those people even went back and then to catch up. At that point, went back and were looking at what had come before with Christopher Eccleston.
And maybe because I did watch this in order, and I tweeted this during Dalek. For me, when I think of Rose, I go back to Series 1 and with Eccleston. I know a lot of people are Rose and 10 shippers. But I don't know. For me, it's just Eccleston.
I have to laugh, not because I discount your theory, but just because I only recently found out what that meant. I ship so and so. It took. This is a foreign term to me.
You should have seen the Lost stuff.
Okay.
wait.
Jack or Sawyer with Kate. That's where I tuned into.
Do you want my theory
on
Kate?
No, I don't.
No,
because I don't care about Kate.
No, please. No, please.
But and I think,
not a Lost podcast.
I think that's partially where season 2 falls down for me, is because I loved Billy Piper and Christopher Eccleston's chemistry together, and it just wasn't quite the same with David Tennant.
It's not the same, but what works for me is it's different, and that's what I like.
It is different.
Rose is a different character when she's with the 9th Doctor as she is with the 10th Doctor. And it's almost like when the persona changes for the Doctor, the relationship changes for the two of them. And I think that's why the 10th Doctor copy is what's left with Rose, because that's what she identifies with the most, is when she really started to, let's just say, fall in love. I don't think she pined for the 9th Doctor the way she does for the 10th Doctor. I don't think she grew in her maybe romantic relationship that she did. I think what she does
is,
is,
they were a better balance for each other.
And I would agree with that.
Rose.
I think what she does is she gets introduced to the qualities of the Doctor in the first season, and in the second season, then she's falls in love with the man himself, and so I think that's why that goes that way. Speaking of Rose, I'll segue into this. I think having Billie Piper stay on, which I don't think she intended to leave. I mean, she certainly wasn't hinting to the fact of leaving after the first season. I think she knew she was in a good thing, and it was a bolster for her career to do one more season. Having the continuity with having the companion stay as long as she did, because a lot of times we'll get a Doctor change, and shortly after in the classic series we'll get a companion change, and that's what happened frequently in classic Doctor Who. What happens here, maybe with the exception of Sarah Jane, who was a season with Pertwee before she stayed on with the second Doctor,
and even
the fourth Doctor.
Perry was introduced in.
Yeah, but Harry was only one season
Perry.
wonder. Oh, Perry. Yeah, she had some time with the fifth Doctor as well. Absolutely. But I think what helps the new series and the Russell T Davies area is the fact that Rose was our constant.
Oh yeah.
That Rose is what helps the new viewer especially deal with the regeneration, deal with the change in a Doctor. Rose having to deal with it is a lot easier for the viewer to sympathize, to empathize with, to be able to carry us in and realize that if Rose recognizes that this is our same Doctor, just in a different persona, different look, different body, everything, that if it's okay with Rose, it works for all of us. And so I think that was a nice bridge. And I thought that Billie Piper handled that well. And I thought that was a very well-played effort to have the 10th Doctor not in the Christmas Invasion as much as he is. Because I think it was us getting used to the regeneration and having the familiarity of Rose in that 2/3 of the episode that she really carries that episode.
Yeah, she does.
I think that's what helps bridge the two seasons together and get us through the regeneration.
Well, it's also very calculated. We speaking of this bedrock, that it's no coincidence the first episode is called Rose, and we've talked before how it is really through her eyes. I mean, the Doctor doesn't show up until midway through it, and there's so much of that that's important. The show, the new series, I think really is about Rose. It's Rose's show, and the Doctor just kind of happened to show up and hijacked it and took it off somewhere else. And I think maybe that's why people are so Rose-centered. I think that's why there's such an attraction and such a magnetism to her, because this was through their eyes.
Maybe this answers Holly's question, what you're saying. And why she didn't feel as connected to Martha.
It very could be. But I mean, because so much of it was through Rose, so much of it was through her perception, her eyes, and what was happening. And so we get into the second season. Well, of course, she has to stay around because she is the link. She's the
our anchor.
audience. She's the anchor to everything that's going on. by the time we get through the second season and all of the events that happen therein, I think people kind of got up to speed again and kind of remembered Doctor Who. And even if you hadn't, obviously for those of us that remember the classic series and came into this with that back knowledge, it felt like Doctor Who again. I mean, it was certainly back, and yay. and for the new viewers,
in some sense, it was back and stronger than ever.
Yeah, very much
Yeah,
so.
I would agree.
For the
Even
new
though
viewers,
I think season 2 has some of the weaker episodes of the series.
Well, I think for the new viewers, it came along, and now it's almost time to, okay, you've gone through a doctor change. Now it's time to go through a companion change and deal with this, because that's part of what makes this show what it is. That
Yes.
it's the constant revolving door on the TARDIS of people coming and going. And so, we were going to lose Rose, and there was a lot of emotional outcry and a lot of, when I watched it, I felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. And I'm not even that particularly partial to Rose in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
But she was there at the time, and this was such an emotional
We had to
farewell.
say goodbye to one doctor. Now we're saying goodbye to a companion.
And again, this is one of those instances where Russell T Davies, and he wrote, and I've gone on record in saying I think Doomsday is like the greatest. It is the greatest television series ending of all time. Practically, I love everything about Doomsday. And it's so big, and it's so grandiose, and it's so over the top, and it's so everything. But at its core, it is the emotional story of Rose leaving.
Yeah.
And that's what Glenn said earlier, is that Russell T Davies writes characters, and he does that well. And yes, he put them into this fantastical, heart-wrenching,
dangerous situation.
Destruction of everything. But it's about the characters.
Yeah.
Everything else comes secondary to that. In later seasons, he forgot that rule, and we kind of got things reversed where the emphasis became on the spectacle. And I think that's why third season maybe falls
that's
down
well
for some
said.
people.
Yes.
That could be.
Is because it's more about the spectacle and the Dobby Doctor and the things that happen in that season, or about let's bring back every companion known to man and have this real fanboy moment. Which yes, it was great and it was wonderful, but the story didn't necessarily advance anything because of that. You just kind of threw us a bone and we loved it, but it's not that emotional core.
That's the thing about when we get to Series 3 and when we get to Series 4, anytime that Russell's writing a story, you can tell. And I think that goes down to the fact that it becomes, when you're going to get to a Russell T Davies story, it's just going to be kind of mindless. And so the things that start to,
I don't know if I'd go that far.
No,
but
You see it in the
I guess I
title and
should
you're
say
like, okay.
mindless fun is what I mean. I don't mean that it's a mindless plot. But that's at the point where I felt like Russell's stories started getting the plot holes because he was getting to the epic moments. He was trying to get to the epic moments. He was trying to get to the grand. And he was foregoing some of the important things to get to it. I think the examples are, Partners in Crime is a bad example of this because I enjoy the ride. But it's the comedy and the humor. And if you look at that as a whole, it's an introductory story. It's, again, we're dealing with writing for a character and explaining a character and introducing us to a character, which we already got a little bit of introduction before with Runaway Bride. But if you look at that as a whole, there's not a lot going on there. There's not a lot of story.
No,
and the revelation at the end is kind of weak. And what the story, where it really wows us, is the fact that Rose comes back. I mean, that's we go, whoa, was that Rose? I mean, was that her? Did we really see her? And so we're throwing all of this stuff at us. The adipose are cute. Don't get me. That's what I'm saying, though. It's mindless. It's mindless fun. It's mindless cuteness. It's mindless. There's not a lot popcorn television. There's not a lot banking on that story because we're introducing a new character, which is okay. It's okay for a pilot or not pilot, but a first episode of a series to do that.
Having said that, take this into account. If you look at the seasons that Russell did, and you look at the pilot, if you will, the first episode of each season, you look at Rose. Obviously, we're introducing a new character. We're introducing a whole new universe in some respects to some people. But it's a fantastic kickoff. It really is a good, solid start to this is what the show is about. Look at Season 2 and the first episode of that, which is
New Earth.
New Earth. And that's another good, solid, even though we've got a return villain, but it's a good, solid, or yeah, I suppose you could technically say Christmas Invasion if you wanted to, but I mean, it's
See, I don't think you count that. Even though it's a new Doctor, it's not the beginning.
Because there's not a lot of Doctor.
Yeah. But so it's a good, solid.
Well, because we don't really get to learn much about the Doctor until the end of Christmas Invasion, and then we get that. There's where it's set up. I'm sorry to interrupt, but okay. I think I'm leaning to your point here. Is Rose is an introduction to the Rose, or to Rose, not necessarily the Doctor, but to Rose.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is New Earth. We already know Rose, so we're being introduced to the new Doctor.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Season 3, Smith and Jones, another new companion, but another fantastic setup for not only the show, but this companion, what the season's going to kind of be about. And yes, it's still mindless fun, but it's still a very solid intro. Partners in Crime is not.
No, it's not. Until the very end.
Yes, we've already...
And then we know what we're in for.
We've already kind of gotten to know Donna through Runaway Bride, but there's just not much that happens. And I agree with you.
Fun.
I'm along for the ride,
fun.
and I'm 100% there. But it's like when we talked about, Will sitting down to watch it with us. And we're like, hey, we're going to watch Doctor Who. And he's like, okay, cool, I'll watch along. I was like, all right, yeah. And then that happened to be the first episode that he saw. And that almost sunk him on the whole series.
Yeah.
I mean,
Partners in Crime?
Yeah. I mean, he was very not...
Because there's there's nothing there.
If you haven't been introduced to Donna before, you don't get it.
Right, exactly. And it is a lot of in jokes. It's a lot of humor. It's a lot of... It's playing off of Catherine Tate's strengths, which is comedy. She came into this as a comedic actor. She grew as a dramatic actor throughout that series. But
Fires of Pompeii is in that very next
exactly.
episode.
And that's where, that's what happens. Is now, okay, we gave you more of the comedy side of, and I think it's a way to work us into Donna as well, because a lot of people going into that series realize that Catherine Tate is a comedic actress, and so what do? You put her in, you
let her shine.
Yeah, you exactly. You play to her strengths, and you tiptoe the viewer into the shallow end of the water.
And she's so obnoxious in Runaway Bride.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's another thing that I think Partners in Crime does is it tempers that obnoxiousness that we got.
Absolutely.
And it's Russell writing the story to say, okay, I have now committed to her being this companion. So I've got to placate a lot of those people that might have had problems with that character in Runaway Bride. Although I think it was a genius move. I did not like Donna and did not want to see her come back. But I liked Donna in that aspect of that story because that character worked for me. That's why I was afraid of her coming back, is because I thought, I didn't like her in this, so why am I going to like her in an entire season? And so Russell does is he strategically writes an episode that gets your feet wet with Donna, plays to her strengths still, but then turns around and smacks you in the face with, hey, look what she can do here too. Yeah. Look what we're going to do with this series this season. Yeah. And that's what Fires of Pompeii does.
Oh, absolutely.
And Fires of Pompeii would have been a much better episode for Will to sit down and watch, quite honestly.
I think so, too. I think so, too. That would to introduce somebody to Doctor Who. Else, you don't do it with Partners of Crime. You do it with Fires of Pompeii.
I feel like we kind of glazed over 3, but we did discuss...
We did
discussed a lot of 3.
We talked a lot of 3 earlier.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm kind of glossing, because we talked about why we couldn't quite put our finger on it, but I think you said it very well in the aspect of maybe this is why we did. So
I still stand by my fact that I think my favorite of Ten's companions is Martha.
Yeah. She's a very strong companion. She's got a lot of well-written episodes in that series, and they play to Martha's strengths. Now we're going against what we just said, but we're going to go back and talk a little bit. But they play to her strengths, so they play to the character, and she gets a lot to do. She's a more intelligent. She's a more intellectual character than Rose. That's what I guess I mean. And so we write stories that season. Everybody that is involved writes stories that season that play to Martha's strengths and to make her a different character than what Rose was. And I think they did a fantastic job. I think Russell did the same thing. I again think he falls down because I think Last of the Time Lords and Sound of Drums are the 2 episodes where Russell's story almost got bigger than what it should have been. It was because he shot too high, and I think that's where, I think that's what he continued to do. Unfortunately, in Series 4, and then did again in the specials, in some respects.
It almost feels like it's the midpoint for him in the end of Season 3. But it almost feels like that's the turning point. It almost feels like this is the point where maybe Russell has kind of burned himself out, and the day-to-day grind of show running something like that. And we've given him all this high praise for bringing Doctor Who back. Keep in mind, in the midst of all this, he's also creating Torchwood and writing for and running that.
And Sarah Jane
Adventures.
Yeah.
All in the same season.
All within the same season. Because two
Granted,
led
Sarah
right
Jane
into that.
came shortly. Was season 3.
It ran
That it
between.
started.
It ran between series 2 and 3, didn't it? Because it
started
springboard
at the
off
same
of
time as
school.
Torchwood.
I
Yes,
thought it
it
started
springboard
later
off of
because
school
season
reunion.
2 introduces companions or Sontarans, and they're not introduced until season 4.
Oh,
Season
well, you're
3.
talking Sarah Jane.
Season 3.
Season
was
2
when,
of Sarah Jane.
Right, but season 3 of Doctor Who, and they end up in season 2 of
No, they're in
Sontaran.
4.
Or they're in
Four.
4.
Yeah, so I think Sarah Jane's
Must have
like
run
one
after
season
Martha then.
behind Torchwood.
That could be. But regardless, I mean,
At any rate.
these projects are starting. Well, because even if you say that, yeah, but he's already formulating Sarah
he's
Jane
starting the
Adventures
stories.
because that comes off the heels of
School
Reunion.
Yeah,
so he's already
absolutely.
formulating that plan. So yeah, he's already working that.
And I think maybe this kind of qualifies for Holly's statement too. If maybe season 3 feels like a little bit of a slump, how many shows have we seen that have come out and the creator has gone, ta-da, look at this, and we all go, wow, that's amazing. And then 2 or 3 seasons in, the creator goes, now look at this, and they've created an all-new show, and maybe they're trying to executive produce both, or they leave their duties on one to go executive produce the other and get it running. And I mean, certainly it happened to Chris Carter with X-Files. X-Files was fantastic, and Millennium was pretty good, but not as great. And then Harsh Realm was like
Harsh Realm and
then
Lone Gunman,
which I personally enjoyed.
Lone Gunman was fantastic.
So you kind of get those slumps where maybe it's just because it's not getting the same
Focus
and the same care, the same level of attention that maybe it should. I don't know that I necessarily believe that from Russell because of the scripts that he had in season 3 up to the end, up to the finale. I think were all pretty solid, but he didn't write anything in the middle of season 3 either, did he?
No, I don't think so. Because
I think
that was left to Human Nature, which was a Paul Cornell. So no, but I think what you're alluding to is what I had problems with in season 4 and season 5, because in the end of maybe even the end of season 3. No, well, special. Sorry, not season 5. I misspoke. Is the problem I have is I think suddenly we're not getting the quality of stories when Russell finally does come back to write something because his mind's on something else.
Right.
Because he's so focused on other projects that are going on that perhaps he felt rushed. And I think even just the bits and pieces I read of the writer's tale, there are moments, especially for Journey's End and Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and then even more so in End of Time, Part 1 and 2, where Russell even kind of goes so far as to admit that it feels rushed, the story is rushed, and that because he has mapped out the idea of how these things are going to culminate, he just doesn't, or where they're going to end. He knows point A, knows point B. It's filling in the gaps.
Right.
And I think that those feel rushed because I think he has so much going on in his plate that he realizes coming up close to air date, I've got to write something here. And so he sits down and he pounds something out. And I think that's where those suffer, is the fact that now suddenly we've got Torchwood and we've got Sarah Jane Adventures on our plate. I'm doing so much more that now, I have committed to also write these episodes. And
Not to mention that he's also writing the writer's tale and sending all that in.
He's
as well.
not writing the writer's tale because, as you probably have noticed, this is all email correspondent for the most part between. So he's just basically writing back and forth. But yes, he is recounting what's going on. But he's recounting all of this for a Doctor Who magazine article.
When you ask me, how come you don't have any new content on the website this week? It's like, I was doing stuff.
Yes, exactly. And that's what this. And I think that's why some of those stories suffer for me. And it's sad because when I think of the end of Russell T, and I'm one of those people, and Chrissy pointed this out. I totally recognize what Russell T. Davies did for Doctor Who. I'm so appreciative of him, and I set him on such a high pedestal for what he has done for Doctor Who. However, I was one of those people complaining alongside that the writing was just not there when Russell was coming back and writing, and I think that this is why it was suffering. And probably not so much maybe not to his own chagrin, that he was taking on so many projects, because when the BBC sees things that are successful and working well, then they want to capitalize on that as well, and that's what they're doing. Is that, and they perhaps are. It's not all the BBC's fault. I'm not making them the evil guys, but them demanding of him and him willing to fulfill those demands stretches him too thin.
Or them demanding of him, and he says, "Well, I got this idea, and they say, "Let's go with it."
Yeah, exactly. And getting those projects greenlit a lot easier now, because as much of a struggle as it may have been to get Doctor Who off the ground, he certainly probably, once they realized the success of this and where he could go with other things, they certainly were probably a lot more easy to do the little rubber stamp and say, "Go with it, Russell."
Yeah,
I certainly think that's the case.
If I had to be pinned down, I'm going to say that season 4 overall is my favorite.
I'd say it's the strongest
of the Russell T Davies era. I think.
Yes and no. The Russell stories for me are not the strongest, but everything that he was allowing others to do at that time was. I would agree.
Yeah. And you guys are the ones that liked Midnight.
Oh, loved Midnight. I thought Midnight was fantastic.
It was great.
Fires of Pompeii is terrific.
Turn Left is great.
Turn Left is phenomenal.
Unicorn and the Wasp is a lot of fun.
But Midnight's a Russell.
I know.
Midnight. Unicorn and the Wasp happened.
There may have been some slight exaggeration.
Doctor's Daughter is a good one. It's not an in-depth one. It's not one of those ones that I stand out and say, this is one of my best episodes. But it was a good episode. It was fun. It had Martha, which was a strength. They recognized the importance of pulling Martha back in and playing to her strengths, even though we've sort of talked about how it sort of detracts from Catherine Tate a little bit. It kind of pulls off of that character and maybe short
all season long, because she's got Martha and Rose and everybody else coming back at the end.
On the flip side of that, I think that was clever on his part as well, to bring Donna back and bring a different type of companion, especially if he had intended to bring Rose back for that season. He had intended to bring Martha back in for that season. It makes sense that you put Catherine Tate in there as such a different companion and such a contrast to the two, so that they can all shine in their own ways, in their own right. And so that was well done as well. I think
then we get a future companion.
Russell's crafting of the show never suffered from anything. I think it was really only his way.
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree. I don't think there was anything that he did from a show running standpoint during his entire run that was subject to any kind of, you did that wrong.
Right.
I agree with you that any failings that I have with anything that he did strictly come from the writing and the decisions to, wait, we're going to do what with the Master?
Yeah.
We're going to do this with and that's just where we've talked, is the spectacle kind of outshone everything else and got in the way.
And I get so frustrated, and Keith, I'm sorry, I'm going to move off of something that you would be familiar enough with, but a lot of people years ago were comparing, at the end of Russell's run, were comparing him to Jonathan Nathan Turner. And I was so frustrated with that, because that was absolutely unfair.
From what I've seen of Jonathan Nathan Turner, that's absolutely not fair and inaccurate.
Jonathan Nathan Turner, I thought, was a strong producer to start, and weakened at the end as he caved into pressure from the BBC, the controllers at the time, not necessarily the BBC as a whole, as he caved into a lot of the fan criticisms, as he started to basically read the fanzines and get into trying to connect with the viewer so that he knew what they wanted, and then really even being bullied by the fans. I think that's what happened there. Russell continued to craft a fantastic series as he went. He continued to...
He took feedback and added it appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there is no comparison. Not to mention, Jonathan Nathan Turner outlived his usefulness on the series. The man started as just kind of a grip. I mean, he wasn't a grip, but he was a behind the scenes guy. And then
and that was all the way back in what, Troughton's era?
I think it was Pertwee.
It was back. So
and then suddenly he's producing this thing, and then was in there for many more years than he wanted to be. He was ready to be done about the time Colin Baker came around or was ready to go, and they wouldn't let him step away from it, because they wanted somebody that had the they wanted him to stick it out. Essentially, is what they
wanted the experience.
Exactly. what Russell did is he put forth 4 great seasons and specials. I mean,
Plus specials.
Of a content. Yeah, plus specials. And got out when it was right for him to get out. And I think that's what benefits. And so there is absolutely no comparison between those two. And I still get so frustrated if I go back to any message boards or look at any of that time that people were making those comparisons, and I get so frustrated because this was not a situation that where Russell, I think, was lacking was just in some of the storytelling, initially the script writing, not even the storytelling, but that was suffering because of something else, and it had nothing to do with the fact that he had been there too long or that he had lost sight of what Doctor Who was. That was absolutely not in any way what it was, and I placate any of those rumors or those people.
I agree with you 100%. I disagree with any fan who says that Russell T Davies was detrimental in any way, shape, or form to Doctor Who.
Right. I agree.
I know that I'll be the first person to stand up and say, "Hey, you know what? I had issues with some of the stuff that the guy did," but that doesn't mean that what he did was wrong.
Didn't JNT actively try to get the show canceled, or was that somebody else?
No, JNT
that was
did
somebody
not.
else.
That was
okay.
I wish I could remember that he actually is at Sky TV or Sky TV now. He went there shortly after they canceled Doctor Who, which is frustrating enough. But anyway, that'll be a topic
if you're looking for an NBC size villain.
There you go.
You mean a Fox?
Well, or Fox size, yeah. And we're certainly talk about Jonathan Nathan.
I can't wait, honestly, once we get a little more under your belt to kind of go into the JNT area.
Because there is a lot of stuff that you need to watch before we even talk about JNT.
I mean,
because JNT was around for so long.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, let's talk about Tom Baker's era.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a lot more to go yet. And I mean, it's the same equivalent. If Tom Baker had been asked to stick it out for 12 more years, what would we have got from it? That's kind of
how much phoning in would he have done?
Absolutely, he was already phoning in that last season.
But yeah, Russell, I don't ever, I agree with you.
I think Russell left on the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. As a showrunner,
he left
as
on
a
top.
showrunner.
As a showrunner, and like I said, there's so much that he did. There's so much that he put out there. I mean, when you look at all 3 series combined, and so much that he's responsible for, Torchwood and Sarah Jane and Doctor Who,
all 3, okay.
Everything that he's been involved with, canon,
K9,
and well,
I think that was purely the BBC in charge of that.
I don't think he had anything to do with that. But, when you look at everything they did, we owe him such a debt.
Yes,
and I think as much as we enjoy Stephen Moffat stuff, Moffat would be the first person to step up and say, we owe this to Russell, because he's the one that pushed and got it back and delivered it to us as fans.
The Podshock guys had a saying I was fond of back when I started listening to their podcast, and this was in Russell T Davies very early in the run of the show. Ken Deep, who's one of the hosts, actually coined this phrase. I believe it was Ken. I'm going to credit it to him, but it may have been different. In Russell we trust was a mantra of that show, and that was so very true for a majority of Russell T Davies series, because anytime you had any sort of doubt or question as to where Russell was going to go, you remember in Russell we trust, and you paid off. You were right. Russell really, he had a vision, and he worked all the way through that vision, and they've actually started applying that mantra now to in Moffat we trust. So.
I was just thinking that we've kind of had that, just not said those literal words.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we've kind of said that from one. It's interesting. I'm looking at Russell's wiki page, and I didn't.
Of course you are.
Of course I am. And it's interesting.
It's a modern day encyclopedia.
He got to start writing
really.
children's work. He did. He was in the BBC Children's Department on a part-time basis. That's
and then
kind of how
went
he
to
got
work
his start
on
there.
Queer as Folk.
Yeah,
imagine that.
we should mention that Russell T Davies wrote for articles for Doctor Who magazine, I believe. Guest writer. And also wrote novelizations in the Wilderness years.
Yeah,
there are books that are novels for him.
That he did.
He had some groundwork going into it anyway. So I mean, not only was the man a fan, he already had a foot in the world of Doctor Who.
Yeah,
and that was a bonus.
Much like Moffat, then.
Yeah, absolutely. Moffat was the same way. They have not handed this show over to anybody that hasn't been worthy of running this show since its return to television.
Would you consider taking it on?
Would I?
Either one of you. If the BBC came and said,
I don't think I'm clever enough of a writer.
If the BBC came to you and said, "Would you be interested in show running Doctor Who?"
If I didn't have to write any of it, I think I could. No, that's too daunting of a task. I don't know.
I don't think
honestly,
I
don't think I could do
arc.
it. It would be a dream come true, and I would. Every impulse in me would be to say yes, I'll take this, and I can do. But the critic and the intelligent guy in me would realize that I couldn't do what either of these guys are doing, that either of these guys have done. And so, no, I think I would have to fight every urge to say, yes, give it to me, do it now. But no, I couldn't. Honestly, I don't think I could do what these guys have done. What about you, Sean?
Yeah. I don't think I could either.
Oh, yeah, I think I could do it.
I could do it.
No, look at Cyberman Bob.
If any three of us could,
do it.
You would be the one that would be able the closest to pull it off. Let me.
Maybe I could come up with a story or a season arc, and then I'll make Sean write everything.
You have us. You have us help.
If I was.
Keep us in mind as producers.
Yeah, definitely. Coming from a management standpoint, one of the first rules of management is you surround yourself with people smarter than you. And if I were given the opportunity to show run for Doctor Who, which I'd be in the same boat with you, I'd be like, but I would be so afraid of being the John Nathan Turner, or remembered as the John Nathan Turner, that I screwed it up and I did that wrong, and there would be so much in there. If I could surround myself with people who I knew were, okay, guys, here's kind of the basic idea for what I was going with. What do you think? And kind of do that, maybe. But if it was just an on-the-spot decision, yes or no, I don't know that I could do it.
Take the George W. Bush approach to running things. Surround yourself with people that know what they're doing.
But that didn't work so
well.
It got him reelected.
Well.
If I could get Gareth Roberts and Stephen Moffat and other people to write
Neil
for
Gaiman,
me.
if you get him to do more.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get all these fantastic writers, I might be able to come up with something that would be fitting.
I call Terry Pratchett. Dude, would you like to write some Doctor Who? You could be the
like
next
Douglas
Adams. That'd be my contribution. Let's make the show funnier.
Anyway, I think we've talked enough about Russell and given him enough praise for this week, and hopefully our listeners will come away with something new about the Russell T. Davies area.
A bit lighter of a conversation than last week.
Absolutely.
It's almost a relief in a way.
It is.
It really
in
felt...
fact, there's not as much... I don't feel like there's as much weighing on me this week talking about this topic as there was
Am
the
I the
time
only one that just last week... I mean, we got very...
It was a blur.
Yeah. I mean, oh, yeah. But I felt very... We ended the podcast and was like, okay, that was a really good show, and I enjoyed the discussion. And then there was this collective... I mean, I was exhausted by the time we were done with
another thing, and I don't know about you guys, but not to dwell on here too long, but I don't know about you guys, but I spent all of last week thinking about the Time War.
And doing research.
I didn't even
research.
See, you were doing research. I didn't even do so much going in, and I did research to qualify some of the things I had thought about, but I had mulled a lot of it over in my downtime, in my own time, thinking about it, my impressions of it, and then it wasn't even over by the time we did it, so we had to go then vocalize all that stuff that I kind of felt the same way. It was that, and so this week I kind of thought, Russell T. Davies, I can talk about that. I can go into it and say, this is what this guy did, and he was great.
We're going to talk about how much fun and how much spectacle.
Absolutely. Fun and spectacle.
That's the name of this episode.
And poor writing choices. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Fun and spectacle, yes.
Alice Moffat, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Man crush on Moffat.
Alice Davies has more depth than Michael Bay. Doctor Who could be handed over to Michael Bay, and all it would be is explosions.
That's not saying much, but anyway.
But wow. For however long it was until they fired him.
Two episodes.
The show would look phenomenal.
If you like a lot of explosions.
Sean, what do we got coming up next week?
Coming up next week, obviously, the big news on everyone's lips is going to be Galley.
Including Sean's.
Including mine. Back. And I'll be blipping off a lot next week, I think. And next week's discussion, I think next week it really is going to qualify us as just another Doctor Who podcast because we're going to spend the week talking about Galley.
We really will, yeah. It'll be
that'll be the one that you guys
everybody else is talking.
You'll be so tired of hearing about it. I think by the time
actually we'll be able to rest our voices next week.
Yeah, we'll hardly
much.
talk.
We'll just be listening.
I'll have to sit here with my...
That should be another thing that we note is the show may come out late next week because it's going to be possibly difficult for Sean to turn Sunday after he gets back. So this may be one of those weeks where we record.
I'm not coming back until Monday.
So that's there you go.
Yeah,
so that's right. We talked about that. So it may be. That's I guess what I'm saying is it may be Monday night, maybe even Tuesday before we record, and put everything together. So it may be a late week for us. However, if all plans go to task. Yeah, Sean will be updating us throughout the weekend, and we hope to have some content on the feeds and on the website for you at that time. I'm going to do my due diligences here at home to be able to try to get a lot of that up. Sean's going to be feeding us a lot of stuff. Keith's going to do some helping getting some of that.
I'll do what I can.
Yeah, he'll do some helping getting that up. So hopefully we'll be able to carry you through the weekend, and you'll forgive us for a late release on next week's show.
Well, I think you'll be tired of hearing from us next week. Like, wow, the Vortex guys got another short trip up there.
Wait a minute. Okay. They put all this content up over the weekend, and then they recorded another 3-hour show.
All about what I just heard.
It'll be a recap. Well, did you listen to them? Yep. Okay, good.
Keith and I will be taking the helm for Friday Night Who, however.
I will attempt to join in. I can't make any promises. Even if nothing else, I'll have to go back and watch it after the fact. We are continuing with the Black Guardian trilogy. Second segment of that is Terminus. So we're still in the Peter Davison era, but that'll be on Friday Night Who.
And there's something I thought about that for Keith, and I'll bring it up next week or in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, something in that I thought, we kind of missed up.
Oh,
again.
I know, yeah.
Oh, great.
Anyway, you'll know what
let me
it
guess
is.
how the companion is leaving.
I'm not going to say anything other than Terminus.
A companion dies.
Terminus. But we kind of screwed the pooch on that.
We did.
But so that'll be coming up, and hopefully a lot of fun had by all. And I will apologize in advance if there's anybody out there that's kind of rolling their eyes and thinking to themselves, "Oh my God! Of all of the people they could have sent to Galley,
send the long-winded one.
Why did you send Sean?" And I'll end with a plug for, if you'd like to help fund next year's trip to Galley and get both these guys to come with me so it can be a little more lively, please buy something from the Vortex store.
Absolutely. All right.
Or buy us a winning lottery.
There you go.
Donations accepted.
That's going to do it for this week, guys. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Be seeing you.
You did it. You did it tonight.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.